Hello and welcome to Champ Select, your go-to competitive Legends of Runeterra podcast. I'm Alex. As per usual, joining me are my two co-hosts, Noble, howdy, and Hugh.
Hello.
And today we have a very special final episode of the Champ Select podcast. We are joined by our good friend, Nico, Mr. ClosingThyme.
Yes, indeed. Back for one more episode.
Back for the last one.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's always hard to make a last episode, I think. I mean, we thought about this a long time, and we're going to talk a lot more about, you know, the things that happened and why we got here throughout the course of the episode. But in general, we got, or at least I got hit up by a member of our Discord a couple weeks ago at this point, maybe like a month or something, named Dr. Blues, or at least by the Discord tag Dr. Blues. And he messaged me after Hugh, you and I did that one episode without Noble, where we were talking a lot about like burnout, improvement, and that type of thing. And he had a lot of interesting, really good follow-up questions that were related to a lot of, you know, how to approach the game, how to improve at the game, you know, how do you deal with burnout? How do you deal with the stress of trying to be the best at these games, that type of thing. And it was really well put together. We loved the idea, so we went ahead and we've done a little bit of modifications to the original ideas, sort of formatted it in such a way that Nico here is basically going to be able to interview the lot of us.
Yes, indeed.
And
give you the hardball questions.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be able to talk about a lot of the things for one last time that really mattered to us about, you know, why we made the podcast, the points that we want to talk about. You know, try to nail home some of our final thoughts and just send it off on a good note. So I suppose thank you so much to Dr. Blues in the Discord for coming up with a lot of the framework for this episode and this idea. And thank you so much to everyone else and the rest of the community that has supported us through this whole time. And I think...
Well, and instead of doing like the questions of the week at the end, we kind of bundled the ones that we got because we were a little tardy in collecting this week, I'll be honest, into the end of the thing. And hopefully we end up with producing something that kind of covers the questions that y'all would have.
Yeah, so. I think we're going to have a lot of topics. This is probably going to be a relatively longer episode. I mean, I'm sure we're not trying to rush it or anything. So
certainly, I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up being like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, this might be our... Well, this will almost certainly be our... Well, I don't want to force anything. I don't want to promise that it'll be our longest episode or anything. But I suspect it might be, but we'll have it come to an organic conclusion for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I think that's enough rambling about what's going to be happening. Maybe it's time to start happening. So, Nico, how you doing over there, man?
Oh, I'm doing excellent. I'm here in person now.
I'm glad you're here.
Pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I guess starting off with the interview, really the podcast was a podcast focused on people attempting to improve themselves. I know when you pitched it to me at the start or around whenever you were starting, the idea was to really help those platinum and diamond players, or, you know, below, of course, who wanted to up their game to the next level and really understand, you know, how they could become masters tier players and get into the competitive scene. So with that in mind, a lot of these questions are focused around how to improve and the process of improving. And one of the ideas that you guys hammered home was that instead of feeling so results oriented, there should be a process, process orientation. And so one of the things that was so great about the Discord, and is so great about the Discord, is that it fosters a culture of scrims and, you know, people coming together and playing against each other instead of playing on the ladder. So how often did you all, attempt to find scrims, especially when it came around seasonal time, instead of just playing on the ladder? How do you think that it affected you? Let's start with Alex.
Okay. So I was always a pretty big advocate for playing scrims. Of course, that didn't mean that I did it as much as I should have, probably.
Same goes for all of us, I'm sure.
As is true of a lot of things. It's just so easy to push play now on ladder and just, play now. So, I mean, I won't lie. The vast majority of my Legends of Runeterra experience was in ladder, which I think is going to be true for everyone, right? But I did play, or at least really tried to play, a lot of high value scrims, especially close to like the tournaments. So I would say that like in the week leading up to the seasonal, on average, I would play significantly more scrims than ladder. And like that would kind of go down the further away from the seasonal we were, right? So, at the start of the season, I'm not going to scrim anybody, right? I'm obviously going to play all ladder or try to hit masters. Towards the middle of the season, you're in a happy place. You play some scrims, but you're still going to be laddering for the most part. And that was kind of my process. So I would probably say that I must have played probably 95% ladder, 5% scrims or something along those lines, which like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It sounds ridiculous, but when you think about how much you played the game, it's like, how many, I'd spend a whole day scrimming, but even then, it's only probably
10%
once a
at
month,
most.
right? Like,
Yeah.
it's 10% at most, maybe. So,
Yeah. And so, Hugh, I remember we did some really helpful scrim sessions back. Oh, gosh, I can't even remember when. It might have been
so long
February. Yeah,
ago.
it was a while ago. But
It was pre-Azure Aurelia.
yeah.
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
how
A
we'll
little bit of
pre
thresh
and post.
But I-
Nasus.
I remember that very strongly being one of the most helpful things to me in preparing for a tournament. I don't know if you have any ideas on whether you found scrims more helpful than ladder in terms of preparing for a tournament, but
for a tournament, I don't think you can even compare the two. Scrims are so much more helpful in my opinion than laddering for preparing for a tournament. You can't really, I don't even think you can really prepare for a tournament with ladder. Only you can obviously learn your deck, but you also still then need to learn your deck in the context of a tournament format. And that's a whole different thing. Like, just the question of what do you ban is so much of your tournament play. Like it determines so much of what you do that you just need to, if you pick your lineup, you need to know exactly what and how to ban. And you can't learn that in ladder.
yeah.
I think it's night and day. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, like it's.
That mechanic isn't in this game.
Oh, yeah, my bad. But like, ladder's just.
Yes, it is. There's
It
Nightfall
is.
and
Yeah,
Temper.
you're right. It
You're
really
right,
is.
you're right.
Incredible. Incredible.
Full circle.
So Noble, since you've so helpfully butted in, when you were scrimming, and when you do scrim, what do you attempt to take away from it, and what are you trying to make notes? Are you trying to note mistakes, and how do you try to improve from that?
So for me, actually, what I wanted to add is that it is so important to scrim with a very specific purpose. I think that every session that I can think back to was anything in LOR or any other game, but specifically in LOR, sitting down and being like, okay, I want to figure out the Thresh Nasus TLC lineup or matchup. Or I think the one that I did that I very remember feeling like I figured out was the Demacia ASOL matchup into those decks in that era, and trying to figure out exactly what that meant we needed to ban. And so just coming in with a very specific purpose, like I'm going to play 3 games from the Dragon side against TLC and see how it plays out. Oh, those felt awful. I either need to play a slightly different Dragons list, or I shouldn't play Dragons in this tournament, or we need to ban TLC, and just that. And then I like doing those at the beginning, like in the weeks leading up, and then the couple days before the tournament, playing a couple just like lineup matchups to just. But I usually, if I just want to jam lineups into each other, I want to already be comfortable with my lineup, know what I'm playing.
Yeah.
There are so many combinations that I don't feel like you can scrim by just being like, this is a lineup of 3 decks I might play. That's a lineup of 3 decks you might play. Let's just jam them into each other. Because you only play like 2 individual matchups in that. Like, I don't think that that's going to lead you to testing that's like going to really help you decide what you want to play. I think that you should do a lot of like theoretical work and then play some like specific, like playing specific matchups instead of just being like, you bring a lineup, I bring a lineup, let's do a thing, is really helpful for knowing. And at that point you are like writing down and thinking, or at least actively thinking about and talking about that. And LOR is really unique, I will say. So just very briefly, like in a game like Magic, you can play 10 games of a matchup, and you might, because it feels like there's a lot more variance, you might not get accurate data on how the matchup feels. Like, you'll get a feel for it. But in LOR, if you're like really thinking about each and every decision, like with 3 games, you can get a pretty accurate picture of a matchup, I've found.
Do you mind if I just jump in and ask?
Oh, not at all.
Or comment on something you said? So you talked a little bit about doing a lot of like theoretical prep as opposed to like experimental prep. And I feel like, so I guess just like as a community, or like as the people in this room, I feel like we tend to lean a lot more on the theory side of things than we do the experimental side of things. And I wonder if maybe that like you said it back and you're like, you need to have a good plan for your matchups, and I stand by that's true, but I feel like maybe we should have tried some more stuff. Yeah. Like looking back on it, like I feel like looking at a lot of the players that are really doing well right now, a lot of it is just, or a lot of it, I mean, these players are great. I don't want to say anything bad, but like when you look at like these top tournament players, they just play so many tournaments. They play them all. They play a tournament every weekend. They're always streaming tournaments. They're scrimming when they aren't streaming, and they like play some ladder occasionally when they don't have anything else to do. Yeah. Is what it feels like a lot of these like great tournament players are. So like maybe that was a poor approach. Like I'm just kind of thinking retrospectively, like maybe we did need to play more with lineups that we didn't quite know what was going on, and maybe we would get a little more of a feel, or just like extra games. But like,
but even then, like I think that I wanted to be intentional, because like I'm not always playing the lineup I want to be playing, but I remember playing against Nico on a lineup, and I just brought like overwhelm scouts or something. Like I played like Freljord Shurima and Freljord Noxus and like scouts, and we were just like, okay, this is like an anti-meta lineup, like still wanting to come with that instead of like, one of you taking the side of decks that you want to learn about versus like just both showing up with like, because if you both show up with like a meta deck and 2 wonky brews, like even if that's what you're going to be playing, you're not necessarily creating conditions that are going to give you useful information.
It might not help.
You need to know what the information you're looking for is before you search for it. Like you can't just
That's
walk.
the best way I've heard it phrased yet.
You can't just walk into a scrim and be like, I wonder what this'll do, and just roll.
Oh look, I lost.
Roll a d20.
My lineup sucks. New lineup.
That was what happened for me the first seasonal. It was like, oh well, this is weird. Oh look, I lost.
Yeah. If you don't prepare what you're trying to learn in advance, you probably won't learn anything useful. You need to decide, this is what this is what I'm going to get out of this scrim, and maybe you won't get that out of it, but at least you had a goal, you had a purpose, and you were angling towards that. Yeah. And just and missing that goal is a data point in and of itself. Like if you fail to achieve what you were trying to learn, that tells you something.
Absolutely.
And I can't tell you what it tells you. The answer is
specific. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. The answer could be anything, but you need to know what you want to learn before you try and learn it. You can't just walk. You need to be prepared.
Yeah. And this is also really helpful, because I know it was a problem for all of us. Like we do not have infinite time to play this game. So you have to do, it's very important to make the time that you are going to spend really matter.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. That was a good summation.
Yeah. So you guys kind of preempted it actually. But the follow-up question on this was going to be, do you have any other practice methods, alternative from playing the game, whether that be watching streams or looking at deck lists? But
generally the answer is definitely yes for me. Like, okay, so we just talked a little bit about like how we don't have infinite time to play these games. A lot of the time when I would be at work, I'd just be thinking about like lineups or decks or whatever. You're sitting there doing nothing. Yeah, right. We all have this time, right? You're sitting there at work, bored out of your mind. You just think about stuff. I did that a lot, so like I wouldn't call that practice, but actively thinking about the game. We talked about doing theoretical prep. That is definitely helpful to you. I watch streams a lot whenever I don't feel like playing. It's a nice thing to have up on the second monitor. You get a lot of experience with watching some of the better players, and watching streams is like, that's my like step one to learn any game, is I like go watch the stream. Yes. And I'm like, okay, well, who's the best player and what do they do and why? Mm-hmm. And that's like how I start to learn every game. So I tend to just like watch a lot of content in general.
Right.
Do you go out of your way to look at the best player? Or do you look for the best streamer? And what I mean by that is there are incredibly skilled players in every game. And the best in the world, like the best performing player in a pro scene in a given game, frequently isn't the best and most helpful streamer for teaching. Like those people are frequently not the best teacher. They might be fine. They might be actively bad. Some of them don't stream at all.
Yeah.
But do you search out first the best player, or do you search for the player who is most informative?
I love that you asked me this question because I have a process.
Oh.
Actually, yeah. So
Perfect.
so when I start
he
playing
does.
the game, I mean, it's not like a mathed out process. I don't have it like written in paper or anything, but I pretty much do this every time. I'm like, okay, I want to play this new game. I like this new game. I'll play it for like a half hour, realize I'm garbage at it, and hate it. And I cannot stand being bad at things. So I immediately stop playing the game and proceed to do 15 hours of research before I will touch it again so that I'm not bad anymore.
Of course, this is all rational, normal things that normal people do. I do the same thing.
Yeah. So when you look at well, let's just use Twitch. I'll just simplify it to Twitch. There's obviously YouTube, other platforms where you can do the same thing and you'll find content and it'll be great. But as for Twitch streamers, I usually just start by watching the quote unquote biggest streamer or whatever the most popular thing is, because odds are that's the best streamer for your game. You know, there's going to be certain people that you like or dislike, certain things that you want or don't want, but that's a great place to start, right? Is just whoever the most popular person is. And then, after you get a little bit of an idea of what's going on, I frequently look for like how-to guides or like, for Legends of Runeterra, it would be like deck guide, right? Like a deck article, a deck guide, that type of thing. And those are frequently done by like slightly less known, but usually content creators that sort of hit our niche, I guess I want to say, is like, this is kind of the niche that I tried to fill with this podcast in my head. And we've talked about it a lot, but it's like creating, not necessarily the best player, not necessarily the best streamer or content creator, but creating content focused on improving that is well made and helps people learn about the game, right? There's a lot of like coaching content. There's a lot of like analysis content, right? You can find these for any type of game. League of Legends, Legends of Runeterra, Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, whatever. Like there's going to be people there's going to be people breaking down games and, talking a lot about it, but you really have to have enough understanding about the game to be able to get what you want out of like this 3-hour video analyzing a 15-minute match, right? And you're not always going to be in the mood for that either. So, it really depends. Like some days I wake up, I'm in class or I'm not doing anything. I'm like, I'm just going to put this on in the background. I don't go and I'm not going to put on this 3-hour analysis commentary. All right.
Yeah. So that idea of you might not be in the mood for it, I think is really interesting because it's something that often comes up when you are looking to improve. And I'll direct this one at Noble because it's very relevant to do practice when you are attempting to improve at a game. You have to sacrifice some of that fun aspect because you can't always just do what you want to do because there are sometimes you need to do something. I don't know. Do you agree, Noble? Do you find that is the case? Or?
Yeah. Well, so first I want to say is the way that I started playing Legends of Runeterra was grinding that dumb like Freljord Demacia like intro starter deck.
I remember that
just
one.
up to like gold 1 in my first season. Like I just played that thing. I just kept playing it. I'd craft a new card. Be like, oh, more Omen Hawks. Great. That card's broken.
I remember you came in the first day. You're like, I have this busted basic deck. They're like, you will not believe the starter deck they give you in this game. It is ridiculous. Read this card. And it just shows me a picture of Omen Hawk. And I'm like, it's fine.
So many
It's
stats.
fine. He's like, it's so many stats. This would have got
can't beat it.
banned in Magic.
They can't beat it.
I was like, I don't know, man. And to this day, that's still both of our takes on Omen Hawk. As you can tell,
I miss when that card
nothing
was
has ever
busted,
changed.
I'll say.
Our first reaction has been our take on Omen Hawk since day one.
Yeah. But yeah, this happens a lot, and it's actually really difficult for me in Legends of Runeterra because when you're grinding and not in Masters yet, you don't want to lose games because it's going to take you that much longer to claw back out of it. But you also need to learn new decks somewhere, somehow, and doing that in like norms isn't very useful. So that's a great reason to watch content for one, like Alex was saying. But yeah, that's actually something that I struggle with is like when trying to like grind up on the ladder or like qualify for the seasonal on points and stuff, being like, fuck, I don't want to try to learn this hard deck against really good players.
Yep.
Because like I'm just going to lose more than the deck should, and it won't be great practice on the deck, and will just be kind of rough in general on my LP. And that's actually something I don't like about the ladder format. Like it feels less punishing to bring a deck you don't really know to a tournament and then like go like 0-2 or whatever and get some games in after like testing like that every competitive game you play has like stakes, has like the same little stakes of LP. But I circumvented it by playing some norms and by watching some streams. And then when you get just good enough at the game, Legends Runeterra, it becomes a little easier. Like, maybe if the deck is busted in the first 10 games, you should have won 8 or 9 of them, but you like win like 6 or 7 of them. But that's still like good enough that you're still making forward progress.
Right.
And then hopefully getting a little better at it.
Yeah.
It feels like whenever you pick up a new deck in Masters, you're just going to lose 100 LP every time, and that's the tax.
Oh yeah.
And,
It's
100%.
rough.
that's a real tax because
That's why I started 0 LP, baby.
you do need to learn new decks. So
The tier 4 0 LP spot at every point in the ladder is kind of a blessing.
crucial
Learning
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. Like once you're at 0 LP, Plat 4, Diamond 4, Masters 0 LP, it is time to play some garbage.
I never sleep sounder than when I'm like Plat 4 0 LP or Diamond 0 LP. I'm like, man,
But then you like
Nowhere but up from
three
here.
games in a row, and you're like, God damn it, I need to play something good now.
Yeah, but see, the thing is, when you do that, I don't know. For me, the mentality there is that like, cool.
That LP was free.
One, that LP was probably free, or maybe it wasn't. Maybe this deck is actually good.
Yeah.
And because I've discovered a few decks that I was like, this is a joke, right? And then like that time I went like 15-0 with the
Talia Malphite.
Talia Malphite.
Oh,
It's just
man.
like, that was just nonsense to me. I was like, started at 0 LP, and I was almost like in
You're
Masters.
just smacking people with chip.
Yeah, and then eventually I started losing games. But like for a while, I was like, wait a second, this deck that I thought I was just gonna have a good time with ended up winning a ton of games, and I also had a good time with it. So that was like best of both worlds. But you definitely have to be very comfortable with losing.
That was Fist Raven for me. I was like, holy shit, this deck can't lose. What the fuck?
We in the stats field call that a reversion to the mean. Yeah. So following off of that, there's this idea of trying to balance having fun and improving. And I think that as competitive players, we all kind of face that. And so what follows pretty naturally is when you are forcing yourself, you're forcing yourself to get better and better and better. And what follows naturally after that is the feeling of burnout. So, I mean, everyone has faced this, the feeling that, either you're not enjoying the game as much as you used to, or that, you're reaching like a mental wall that you're like, I just don't want to queue up for the next, game. So how do you all deal with burnout? I'll start with Hugh. In terms of, are there measures that you take, or do you just kind of let it run its course?
So for me personally, I tend to play when I feel like playing. There have been days where I can hit that play button. There have been days where I played like 8 hours straight, and that is not something I do normally ever. I can barely play for 2, honestly, at a time. And there have been days where I'll play a single game, win that game or lose that game. But usually when I quit after one game for a whole day, it's usually because I won that game. And I'm like, well, I don't want to lose
Score
20 LP, so I'm just gonna stop.
Bank that one.
Exactly. And it's always, and every single time I'm like, all right, well, this is hilariously irrational and stupid,
Yep.
and I shouldn't do this. And I know objectively this isn't how this works, because I will, no matter what, later, at some point later, be hitting that play button again, and I will, pretty much no matter what, be losing at some point again. Like, technically speaking, I could win the rest of the games for the rest of my life, but no, I won't. And I don't know why for me personally, but even if I break it down completely rationally, step by step, and fully acknowledge the reality of what will happen, I can still convince myself to just stop playing for a day. So for me, I found that it's purely a feel thing. Like there are days where I can force it a little harder, and there are days where I absolutely cannot.
Yeah.
And there are steps I can take to mitigate either side. Like we've talked time and time again about playing with people. That has always helped. Something that I would have liked to have done more was stream, but for some reason my internet has slowed to like 0.5 megabit per second. So I absolutely
Tell me
can't.
about it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but of the times that I was able to consistently stream, play nonstop was when I was streaming and people were talking to me in chat. Like that was great.
Right.
So unfortunately, that didn't really continue, but that was one of my favorite ways to play the game.
Yeah. I mean, if I could just talk about my own experience for half a second.
Please.
One of the ways that really helped me when I was, really trying to grind for the seasonal, when I was really trying to grind for ranks, was just playing in short bursts. Because I know for me, for some reason, I would play like 5 or 6 games and just go on like a pretty good winning streak. And then, after that first loss, I'd be like, I'd feel like, okay, that kind of sucked. And then I'd play another one and I'd lose again. And at that point, you can ask yourself, is it rational to stop? Like what he was saying. And that's, I think, when you need to analyze yourself and say, am I still playing at the best of my abilities? Because if the answer is no, what's going to end up happening is you're going to keep playing, you're going to keep losing, you're going to tilt. And that is one of the easiest ways to start feeling burned out. Because when you're tilting, obviously, it's no fun at all. When you're losing, it's no fun at all. And when you're not playing your best, it's no fun at all. And you're beating bad practice out of it. So for me, it was short bursts, and that really helped me. But we talked a little bit about it earlier, the idea of trying to balance, practicing different decks, trying to balance staying high on the ranks. And so Noble, how did you balance that with also the feeling of burnout, if you ever suffered that when you were trying to climb?
Yeah. So this is a solution that has its own problems, but I've played a lot of games I played a lot on my phone. And so like I've played a lot of games sitting on friends' couch waiting for something like else to happen or while watching a movie or whatever, which isn't the most conducive environment. But it is it isn't the most conducive environment for really thinking about a game. And I wouldn't like practice for a tournament like that. Mm-hmm. But it is nice when what you need to play is a volume of games. I've qualified for Masters more than once. I've won my Masters game downstairs in this very house while playing a poker tournament with my friends who happen to also live in this house.
Noble, your
I
action.
like throw up my hand and I was like, I get it. And they're like, great, can you like pay attention to the poker now?
Noble, you're the dealer. I'm gonna need you to put the flop out on the board. Come on.
But that helps me, which is kind of playing a couple games like while I'm eating food or while I'm watching a show. And it's nice because it also makes me feel like while I'm sitting down and watching TV, I'm also doing something. But it does mean that it's not necessarily as focused as I could be. And definitely my most successful win streaks have been like sitting down at my computer and being like, all right. No, that's a lie. My most successful win streaks have been pacing around the living room of my apartment on my phone, chatting with other people and being like, wow, this deck is fucking insane.
Asking me what to play.
Asking Alex what to do. Yeah, absolutely.
No.
And it really, really helped. I mean, this is obviously not like a solution that I can recommend, but living with Alex would recommend.
You heard it here first, folks.
Very helpful for my win rate and just
He does want to send applications.
But like really just like having a friend that plays LOR and just like hanging out and jamming is like very like, even if you can do it in a Discord call, but like a lot of our playing with other people was me sitting on Alex's bed and Alex sitting on at his desk.
Mm-hmm.
In person is like weirdly incredibly helpful compared to over Discord. Like it's
really nice.
I'm always surprised by how much more you get out of in-person interaction and like talking through plays than you do out of just being on a Discord call.
Totally.
I also think that real quick. I also think that you just end up getting so many more of those small in-person interactions, especially when like you live with someone, like I lived with Noble, right? I mean, you just see them so often that, like, you know, when you get on a Discord call with your friends, it's usually at night after work. You know, you're not going to play one game of Legends of Runeterra with Hugh on his lunch break. Like, I wouldn't, right? Because we don't live together. Like, you know, you're not going to get on Discord for one game, right? Like, that's just not, you just don't do that very often. So, just the actual quantity of conversations that we have had about the game in person, just because we live together, like,
I was like, hey,
I'm certain helped both of us get much better.
On ladder? Yeah, it was huge.
Especially because like when you live together, when you're in person, sometimes inspiration will just hit you. You'll be like, wait a second, what if we played this deck with these cards and changed
we did that
this
so many times?
Exactly.
Yeah,
like all of a sudden
just, like,
you
making
have an
breakfast
idea.
together. Yeah.
And then
so I'm hearing that we need to make an LOR house.
Honestly, that might be the way.
I mean that is why gaming houses do exist.
Yeah, no, it's true. Yeah,
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Not to wait. I had a veer off topic that I forgot about.
I'm
so now
sorry.
Okay, well,
guess I'm
I can
not-
veer you
no,
back on topic.
No, that's fair.
Cool.
Yeah.
If you want.
We're good? Okay. So still talking about the fun versus competitive aspect, we've talked a little bit about deck selection and having to learn new decks. But when you're actually trying to climb, how do you choose that deck? Is it, you know, kind of what you enjoy the most? Is it
Mostly what
kinda-
Alex tells me. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let's start with
just
Hugh, because I
kidding.
know Hugh has had some love affairs with pirates in the past. And,
Oh, yeah,
and I know that
certainly.
yeah.
Certainly a few. It's mostly about a comfort level for me. If I am sitting, I can rarely sit down and devote my full attention to Legends of Runeterra, and I've weirdly found that when I am devoting my complete actually no, when I'm devoting my complete undivided attention, I do play my best.
Okay, I was
but
gonna say.
there is a weird middle ground where I am paying just enough not attention to the game, where I sort of go on this middle ground autopilot that just sort of works for me. And this has been true for every game I've ever played. This most frequently shows up when I play Smash, and I'll get into this weird zone where I stop thinking about the buttons I'm pressing and I start doing better. It's
Flow
a
state.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
actually, speaking of Smash, this exact phenomenon you're talking about, there's a lot of really good videos by Smash pros called the quote unquote flow state, which does apply to other games. That's Hughes.
So we're learning
telling you,
about
so-
Hugh's pirate flow state.
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And-
So I mean, if you guys, if anybody is interested in that particular phenomenon, you can watch those videos. But
Yeah, and basically I pick a deck where if I need to get in a volume of games, and it is just a volume of games, I will pick something I'm so comfortable on that I can achieve that flow state. We'll just use that term because apparently that's the official term. And
coined it.
there we go.
Nice.
And the two decks that I have, there are two decks that I've ever been able to achieve that with, and that is Pirates and Zoe Lee. Those are the two decks that I can consistently just shut a part of my brain off. And because I don't have to devote that amount of extra brain power, it just helps me not burn out as hard.
You
That's
can go for longer.
I can just go for longer. And sometimes, there's also the overthinking aspect. There are plenty of times where I massively overthink a play. And, how many times have we all sat with a Get Excited in our hand and they're at 3? And
It's me.
Oh,
I've done that.
I've done this. Yeah.
we've all done this.
Yeah.
And we're just
Never ever.
and we're just okay, well, he's dead. Okay, but is he dead? And then we start going through all of these nonsense scenarios in our head where there is a 0.05% chance or something where they're not dead to Get Excited when their Nexus is at 3.
And then you pass and they pass and then you fire it off and they just play this guiding touch and you're like, I'm such a fucking idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every time.
We've all lost games to that, I'm sure. Anyway.
So it's really funny because actually the next question literally did pertain to the state of mind that you like to try to get yourself in before you play, but honestly that sounds more like during. And I mean I don't even know if there is necessarily a difference. Noble, Alex, do you either have a state of mind you try to be in while you play, or is it just kind of where you're at?
Okay, so I've got a couple I got a couple thoughts. So when I'm trying to play, basically there's like varying levels of like how much attention am I playing this game?
Yeah.
Right. There's I'm in Platinum 3. The season just started.
Yep.
I'm at my friend's poker game level of play.
Fascinating.
Right. We're just trying to play. I just like, there's new cards. I don't know what they do. I need to know how the interactions work. I'm just playing the games to play the games, right? I'm not really trying to take that much away from them, just trying to gain some comfortability. Then there's like level 2 for me, which is usually when I'm like in my room and I'll have like music or like a video on where I'll be like picture in picture, or I'll be like working and playing, that type of thing. And that's like, for me, that is the state in which I think I play the worst, actually.
Okay.
Where
Same,
the
for what it's worth.
like middle ground where I'm thinking, but I'm missing a little bit at the end. Like, especially because for me personally, like I feel like I'm such a deliberate player.
Mm-hmm.
Like I take a long time to do anything, and it is because I think through everything every time. I always do. And I have to do that, I've learned with myself, and I have to make a plan, revise that plan, and edit that plan in my head all on my turn, and then submit my final plan, like my final paper, basically. So I like go through the rough draft, I edit it, I submit my final draft. I do that every turn in my head, like before I do any play, basically. And so when I miss the edit step, I submit some garbage.
Alex
Gotta proofread, man.
was born to be a studying student.
Yeah,
He was
yeah.
born for it.
That is beautifully ironic given the amount of times he has studied.
I do this exclusively in video games.
Yeah, it's-
By
yes.
the way, you should not I do not apply this to my schoolwork. I've never once revised a paper for English.
And Alex, just for the record, what are you now going to college for? What are you now grad schooling for?
I am currently in graduate school for theoretical astrophysics.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Which
Not
you-
important.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
important.
You can fuck this.
So
up.
He's low-key a genius, but
And apparently an excellent Legends of Runeterra roommate. So,
Yeah.
okay, so but regardless, so like that state 2 for me is like no good. But I will say I think it's my most played, like, as well.
also same.
Yeah, I think I play the worst, but I think it's my most played, and that has a
Curious.
lot to do. Honestly, I might just go on a little tangent here. So if you guys
Go
are okay
for
with
it.
that, feel
Go
free.
for it.
So you mentioned earlier, like the little bit of compromising between playing enough games, playing the right deck, winning, and like Noble touched on volume of games, and volume of games is very important in Legends of Runeterra when you're trying to make high masters, just because you need to play enough games to win the majority of your games, right? And even when I think I'm playing, I believe I have an above 50% win rate in masters when I'm playing like with the like music on, not really paying that much, or not paying 100% attention, probably paying like 80%, right? I think I usually play my quote unquote worst Legends of Runeterra, but it's still consistent enough to win me most of my games in masters. I might not be going up in LP just because masters is rough, but it's good enough to get good practice. When I'm like really, just like no distractions, tournament mode, hard focusing, I think I play my best. I have a much better win rate. But where I was going with this is, you mentioned, so like volume of games has a big like sort of black cloud over Legends of Runeterra, I guess I would say, or the competitive scene is like you just need to put in enough time. And so whatever method like you need to do to be able to put in the hours to make it to a high master's position, right, is usually fine. And that's different for each person. And so for me, when it comes to like playing decks, building decks, like the fun versus the grind versus the winning, it helps me a lot that I'm like the spikiest spike of all time.
Yes.
And I just only ever really, I enjoy playing the games, but I want to win, and I always want to play the best deck. I always want to be doing the best thing.
Yep.
So it helps that I get most of my fun out of doing the best thing, or what I think is the best thing. So I never really, I guess I want to say I've never really, not that I've never empathized, but like I don't really understand. It's just not me when people are like, I don't want to play these slave meta decks. Like I just want to play my big dumb ramp aggro deck, and I'm like, okay, cool, have fun losing. Like it's basically been my reaction in every card game, and I've always been like, look, man, that's you, that's cool. Like I'm not gonna hate you for it, but like, that's just not me. So I'm gonna play the decks I like to play.
I feel kind of
They're always
similar,
the best deck. So
But like I also totally understand like when the best deck is a deck you don't want to play. Like I will always play the best deck, but when the best deck is something I don't want to play, I just won't play. And that's kind of the problem. Like that has been my problem with a couple LR metas. It's like when the best decks were things that I didn't enjoy, I just didn't play for a couple weeks, and that's just not.
And I would just play them.
Yeah.
Usually, it's like Zero Valley. I'm gonna play it.
So
Whatever the best deck is, I'm gonna play it. So
I mean, it's not necessarily directly related, but it is kind of Noble. You said you just avoid metas that you don't enjoy the best deck. In situations where you have to climb, or in situations where you feel frustrated with a climb, what do you do to deal, especially with tilt or frustration or just those aspects in terms of trying to get better?
I'm lucky in that I can usually get into a deck. The best example was like TLC. Like that deck was just awful to play on ladder because it like the games took so long. And it was just such a grind, and you knew you were going to win them from like turn 3 as long as you were like 18.
I loved it.
I fucking know you did.
That never felt more powerful
and like
than being
TLC mirrors
18
were
on
like
turn 3.
not Legends of Runeterra, and it was just like really bizarre.
I loved them too.
Yeah, I know.
It was the best deck, Noble.
There are two types of people.
Get it.
There are two types of people.
But
The people
luckily-
who enjoy TLC mirrors and the people who do not.
Yeah,
It's so cool. They have board space, and they can't they have too many pillars, so they can't kill you. I love that mirror.
too many pillars. I just like, I really like I was able to play Fresh Nasus then and like really like it and enjoy it. But taking a break usually helps. And then trying to find like counters and stuff usually helps. But the times that I've just played the least ladder and had the least success are definitely when the best deck was something like TLC or Thresh Nasus for like the 3rd season in a row. And I was like, all right, maybe I'm done with this now. And
Says the guy who literally in the car right over here was like, I miss Thresh.
I do.
Nasus."
I do miss Thresh Nasus. I love sacrifice decks. Anyway.
After hearing you both say what you said, I'm realizing now that there is something very weird in how I choose my deck. For some reason, so I am similar to Alex in that I want to know what the best thing is. I will play the best thing for a while, but something that is different is if I end up. So Zoe Lee was like the best deck for a while.
Yeah. Going a little ways back.
It is not anymore.
It is not. Still pretty good, though.
Still pretty good.
Yeah.
Right. So I will absolutely fall in love with the deck so much that no matter what, I will come back to it. And something I like to do in everything ever is try and see what everyone else is doing and trying to see. So if we're trying to get from point A to point B, and most people have one method of getting there, I will try some nonsense, circuitous route.
He's taking the loop-de-loop.
Yeah, like I will try and basically like
3 rights make a left.
cheat my way, but not cheat because it's more difficult what I'm doing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I for
Yeah.
some reason, when I see a ton of people doing a thing, I just need to not do it.
Yeah, see, and that's like I think a really interesting like dichotomy between you and me's playstyle is like we both want to know what the best thing is, but then usually what happens is I get really into beating the best thing mirror, and you play the best thing mirror like 3 or 4 times and like
Decide I hate it.
and decide you hate it and want to do something and take a different approach
So
to
Alex
it, which
is
is
a
not
spike.
which is not
He was a hipster.
I mean,
that
he's a
what we're
spiky
getting here?
hipster, I think.
Spiky
He's
hipster.
got like the leather jacket at least.
Nice,
The, like
yeah.
spiky leather jacket.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I just like, there's something so like weirdly satisfying to me to figuring out workarounds to problems. Like when someone presents me with any problem and they know the solution and I find a different solution, I love that.
I'm just gonna bash my head against the brick wall until I figure it out.
I don't know why I love that so much, but I've always loved trying to figure out the wrong way to do things and making them work.
Perfect. Yeah.
You should come rock climbing, Hugh. That's a big part of rock climbing. One of my favorite parts of rock climbing.
Oh, I used to, and people got so mad at me.
Weird ways up that wall. This is kind of analogous to card games, but when I rock climb, I do a lot of like, oh, there are some other holes on there. What if I just like jumped to the top? Just like, oh, what if we just skipped it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That wasn't analogous to card games at all. I just wanted to say it.
No, that's cool.
Yeah. Where are we now?
So, well, to wrap up this portion of the interview, I say interview, it's really just,
We're just vibing.
yeah. But give me your best Diamond 1 ADLP horror story. And how'd you get over the anxiety? Like, what was the resolution?
Okay, so my
'Cause
worst.
a lot of people struggle with that.
My worst one, for sure, was. So I'm trying to remember exactly which season it was. I think it was not the Azir Irelia season, but the one before it, I think. So just before
Thresh Nasus.
So Thresh Nasus TLC. I'm pretty sure it was this one. And I'm sure I talked about it in an episode in the past. But I was playing TLC pretty much. I played like a lot of TLC on ladder that season. And ironically, I think this was the highest ranking ladder placement I had was this season after this Diamond 1 horror story. But I lost my Diamond 1 ADLP game 7 times.
Oh, God.
That season. And I never dropped below Diamond 1.
Wow.
I spent a week fluctuating in exactly Diamond 1. And I would never lose enough games that I would go to Diamond 2. And could not win my last game. And the one that stuck out in my head the most is the 6th game I lost, or I guess the 7th. So the last one I lost, I queue up TLC into Dragons, which, Nico, you and I played some scrims of this matchup from that season. So you remember.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good matchup.
It's a good matchup. Very good. And I got raffle stomped by a judgment on my opponent. Like, I played the Watcher. I Watcher comboed. I attacked. He blocked with an Aurelion Soul, judgmented my board, and then played Zoe's champ spell and untapped and killed me. And it was, I was like, I just got so owned. I felt that one in my soul. And then I lost 3 straight games after.
So what was the I don't know, comeback? Or was it just, kind of business as usual? I know this is the grind. It sucks, but
I think I could have lost it. I think I could have really lost my marbles if I had ever gone below Diamond 1.
Okay.
Yeah. But because I had that little safe pocket, and I never, I could have wound up at Diamond 4-0 LP after the 6th loss.
Right.
I'm going to be honest. It could have happened. Thankfully, smart Alex decided to take a break after that game.
There you go. It's a good tip.
And ate something and then came back and played some more later. But it was I don't know. I spent a week just basically in Diamond 1. And it was, I've been there before.
It's where I live.
Yeah. I'm no card game noob. I understand how the grind's got to be sometimes. And I also I don't know, for all the things I'll say, I do think one of my strengths as a card game player is that I am pretty resistant to tilt.
Mental fortitude is a really big skill that people underrate.
Yeah, I'm quite good at losing a game, thinking about it, being like, did I play well? Yes or no? Check the no box. What did I do wrong? This.
Yep.
Deep breath. All right, next game. I'm going to remember those things. And so I don't get tilted very easily. So I never really, I remember at the time, I didn't even really, I had to go back and count how many times I'd lost my D1 game because I wasn't even keeping track at that. I had to go back and be no, I lost it. I lost it 3 times already. All right, now here's the 4th one. Now this is ridiculous. So
yeah, for people listening, that is a very model, example of how you should try to compartmentalize it, because it doesn't help you to tilt and keep playing. It really helps you to think back through your mistakes and try to figure it out. Noble, do you?
Yeah. Mine is not a Diamond ADLP story. It's a story about a time that I got stuck.
His life got
in
flipped, turned
in
upside
Plat
down.
that I got stuck in Plat 3.
Yeah, this was great.
Okay.
Oh, I remember that.
I was trying to qualify on ladder for a fucking seasonal.
Yes, you were.
And like for 2 weeks.
You got there. You got there.
Yes. For 2 weeks, 3 weeks out of the seasonal, like, you know, the 2 weeks before the week before it was done, I could not, for the fucking life of me, make it out of actual like plat 2, 3. I could never make it to plat 1. Or I could never make it. I never went back down to plat 4. I just lived between plat 2 and plat 3. And
Hard
like
stuck.
Hard
this was
stuck,
like
indeed.
when go hard, Fiora Shen, like that kind of stuff.
Field
And I
rush.
just couldn't fucking. I just couldn't
Fiora Shen.
fucking. Oh yeah.
Oh my god, I miss Fiora so much.
Yeah.
about
That's
that
when
later.
it all went downhill.
Talk about that later. Yeah. So,
So
like,
and like I got really tilted. I kept playing different decks. I was like, I can't fucking win with this deck. I'm trying this other deck for 10 games. And that was part of the problem. Like when I was like, and then one night I was like, I'm gonna play some Go Hard. And then I was like, all right, I'm just gonna keep playing Go Hard. The deck is good. Like I will eventually get out of the bad variance that's causing me to go like 50-50. Like, and then once I'd gotten enough games on that deck. And I want to be clear. I think this was when Go Hard was one fucking mana.
Oh, yeah,
like,
it was.
I was like,
Oh, yeah.
with this broken ass deck stuck
Yeah.
in flat 3.
yeah.
That meta was fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
And it was like actually for over a week that I was stuck there. And
It was a solid 2 weeks.
really tilted. Yeah.
I remember. Yeah, I have distinct memories of you like laying on the couch, like with a half-eaten bagel in your mouth, being like, "Oh, I'm still stuck in plat 2. God damn it!
I just can't get out.
I have that distinct memory of
I
you
made
rolling
a
on the
joke on
couch.
the podcast, like maybe this I'm just a plat 3 player. Like,
Yep.
but I kind of just stuck through it. Like there were a couple days where I didn't play, and then I was like back to it, and I was like, I gotta fucking do it. And then I stuck through it, and then I got like 2 masters with like an 80% win rate. Like as
Yeah,
soon
we
as I got out of it, I just like
cruised through
I didn't lose a game through platinum, and then like diamond took me like 2 days, and like.
Yeah, and then we just went like 5-0 in Masters, or
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like 6-0
and then-
or 7-0 in
so,
Masters to Q. Like
Talking
the night
about like
before, it was
the
sick.
different like flow states. When I was like not into it, playing different decks all the time because I was like, none of these works. Like I can't find a single deck. All the decks are so even against each other. I can't find a single deck that I like.
Yes.
Part of that was like not learning each deck enough,
Right.
and part of it was, I mean, that was true. I was like, I waited too long to climb the season. Everyone's refined this meta that is like pretty balancy, rock paper scissorsy. So it didn't feel super skill intensive. But then I just like learned the deck and like I got over a gap in my thinking. I got past the mental block of that was like causing me to play bad and also causing me not to do the things that would let me play better, like play a better deck or play the same deck more. And then that I just took off. And like then in Masters, I was like, okay, I need to win like 7 games, and we have like
I
44
remember
hours.
this distinctly, actually. It was like you were like 4 hours before, right?
Yeah, and then I just
For-
sat down with Alex and I was like, well, let's play. And then I just like rattled
Yeah.
off a 7-0, and I was like, great.
Well, yeah, we lost like, it was really interesting because what we lost like 2 or 3 games to Fiora Shen, right? And then we just like made the meta call and switched to Field Rush or something.
other way.
Other
we,
way.
We were playing Field Rush.
Yeah.
And we ran into 3 Field Rush mirrors in a row, and I was like, I'm gonna play Fiora Shen.
Yeah,
and then I just like clean
7-0'd
7
them.
with
Yeah.
Fiora Shen.
Actually, it was
perfect
you
qualification.
doing that because I was trying to do the like I was around there. I can't remember what order it was like, but I know that I ended up climbing Fiora Shen too, and that was that was the beginning of my own Fiora Shen
Yeah.
obsession.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yep.
Hugh?
Yeah, so my 80 Diamond 1 ADLP story is I remember a time where basically I was playing Thresh Nasus. This was in the TLC meta. I was playing Thresh Nasus, and I'd win my games up to Diamond 1 ADLP, and then I'd face exactly discard aggro, which is a good matchup.
Classic.
It's a good, like, I'm supposed to win that. Like
55-60% of the time.
yeah, like I have a good win rate into that deck. And then for 4 games in a row, 4 games in a row, 4 Diamond 1 ADLP instances.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly discard aggro.
Mm-hmm.
And I would lose.
I also, in that like TLC stretch that season, I also lost a game to Teemo Burn. which is the deck's
God.
literal best matchup. It's like, it was, I think, the most lopsided matchup I've ever seen in a card game. I lost it at D1 ADLP that season too, which
Yeah.
I just remembered, so thank you.
Yeah, and then
Work that one out.
Yeah.
the fifth, like I was just like, this is ridiculous. I keep losing a good match, and then the part that like sucked on top of that was I would then get back. I would just win loss back to Diamond 180, and the win to get back to Diamond 180 LP was always some terrible matchup. I would just be like, I queue up and I see, I don't even remember what Thresh Nass's terrible matchups were, but I'd see something. Oh, like Dragons that was good.
The deck was weirdly good against everything.
Yeah, never mind. Anyway, I'd see something that was sub 50% according to the
like
data.
Overwhelm or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good example. And I'd be like, oh, great, I'm going to lose again. And then I just crushed them. Or there were a couple where I barely squeaked out a win, but I beat them because it was a rough matchup. And then I'd get back to Diamond 1, ADLP, and I'd hit this great matchup. I'd lose. And I'd hit a bad matchup and I'd win. And I'd be like, what the hell is going on?
We're in the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, like what is this topsy-turvy bullshit? Like, and then I just eventually beat discard aggro. Because for some reason, it was always discard aggro. Right when I hit Diamond 1 to 80 LP, it was just the same deck every time.
You were just pumping those discard aggro players to masters. You were just they were running up and you were just giving them the boost.
Yeah, and every time they were probably like, oh, God damn it.
Emotional gets another Twitter follower.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that was the only time that ever really stuck with me. Because at the end of the day, Diamond 1 80 LP is exactly the same as Diamond 2 60 LP. They're not different games.
No.
There's a maybe slight difference in MMR, but really not.
I have some phenomenal stories of this happened to me 2 times in various seasons where I would be Diamond 180 LP and I would queue into just some random Masters player that had 0 LP, and I would be playing some meta slave deck, obviously, whatever I thought the best deck was, obviously, because I'm Diamond 180 LP and I'd be playing it anyway. And they'd be playing Masters 0 LP and I'd queue into like Yasuo Katarina, and they just stomped. And they just scoop on turn 1.
Oh,
like
cool.
2 times my Diamond 180 LP game. I just queued into some random jank that somebody was playing at Masters 0 LP and they just scooped on turn 0. Or on turn 1. So that's how I got into Masters twice. So that was pretty sweet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's like ideal, but I don't know, it's funny because truly the Diamond 1 ADLP thing is really just, it's another game, right? But like it's tough to get over that mental block because as soon as you hit Masters, you're there.
Yeah.
Apparently you can drop for Masters. I have never actually seen anyone do it.
Never seen that.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
Really?
so I
Really?
maybe you can't. Honestly, maybe you can't. But it is that mental hurdle that's tough. And Noble, actually, the idea of just playing a deck that is very good and jamming games until you get good enough at it, removes one of those possible mental blocks where you're like, I don't know if my deck is good. Well, if you don't have to worry about that anymore and you only have to worry about your play, you can just focus on that.
Yep.
Right? You just solely focus on what you were doing wrong and right, and that helps a lot. Yeah, so that concludes that portion. And so you were talking about Thresh Nasus.
Yeah.
I know that is, one of your favorite decks.
Yes.
Yeah, of all time.
Definitely up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So do you actually like Thresh Nasus? I thought you hated it.
I did at first.
Oh, wait, he came back around on it. My bad. He got Stockholm Syndrome to liking it. Well, in that case, so I was trying to make a joke, but I guess following off that, is there a meta that you miss? What was your favorite meta? What was your favorite deck during Legends of Runeterra throughout all of the time that you've played? I've been hearing a lot about.
Cool. All right, I'll just jump off, I guess.
Go for
I
it.
think my favorite deck of all time in Legends of Runeterra is Lead Zoe,
Okay,
which might be a shared answer in this room.
it's a good choice.
But man, that thing is my baby. I feel like I don't know, that deck, just like, I loved it. I found it on Twitter one time. It's like one of those random decks you just happened to see. Ported it, went 20-0 through platinum with it one season. or the first time I played it, just like straight up 20-0.
That's an insane run.
Which is just like almost unheard of. I think it went like 22-0 before I lost my next game or something. But just like absolutely unheard of run. Made I was pretty proud of like put out like a deck guide on it. I was pretty proud of. I thought it was pretty good. And then it got a lot of positive feedback on the Reddit, so I was really happy about that. Majin Bay at the time, I don't think this was before he.
This is before he
he'd won the seasonal. Because he actually used this deck to win the seasonal. But before he made a podcast or anything, the Mastering Terra podcast, which is excellent, by the way. If you guys don't listen to it, you should check it out. But so Majin Bay like took that list and climbed to rank 1 with it, and then like posted a thing, and then it was everywhere. So I feel pretty happy about my grassroots Lee Zoe story. As for my favorite meta, I think it might have been. So I think it's either that Lee Zoe meta or potentially this most recent one. So not since the patch, because I haven't played enough since this patch to really have a good idea.
Yeah.
But like this last seasonal that we played, that format, phenomenal. I loved it. The games were so interesting.
There's some cool decks too.
Yeah, the decks were cool. Like
Self-Hook decks.
I loved the Nami Zoe decks. I loved the discard decks. I loved all the Bandle City piles. I thought they interacted with each other pretty interestingly. I thought all the games were interesting. And while they did get a little kind of stale, I would say, so like I think that would be a very reasonable complaint to have, is that like, you know, discard aggro was the most played deck on ladder from like day 1 of that patch to like the end of the season.
Right.
So like I could see it getting a little stale. It wasn't nearly as bad as like a Zero Irelia or anything, but it could get a little stale for some people who maybe want a little bit more spice or a little bit more variety. But for me, I love those like those meta games where I can really get in deep and just scrape out little percentage points by knowing matchups really, really well.
Yeah.
So I really liked that one.
For me, I loved Fiora Shen. I think Fiora Shen might be my all-time favorite, which is funny because when I was being introduced to this game, my roommate was like, "Yeah, there's this one deck that sucks. It's called Fiora Shen." And this was like when Shen was like a 2/5.
Yeah, when
and he
Shen
was like,
was
it just
bad.
does this stupid thing where it just attacks 4 turns in a row, and you just like can't beat it. And like they have infinite protection spells, like, you know, that it just gets you. And I was like, that does sound stupid, but the deck's not super consistent, so that's fine. And then like a little while later, a lot more cards being printed, Shen being buffed, and the deck just had so many cool plans, and it just like, it was so dynamic. It felt really interesting. There were so many interesting decisions. River Shaper's broken.
River Shaper's broken.
Sharp Sight exists.
Sharp Sight, yeah.
River
yeah,
shape
totally.
the land and give it life.
Give it life.
And I think that was, so like Fiora Shen existed and was really fun in like the Go Hard Feel the Rush, and then also still existed and was really fun when TF Fizz was really good.
Yep.
And I also loved playing TF Fizz, even though I understand that everyone else hated playing against TF Fizz, which is fair. I only liked it because I just fucking loved TF Fizz.
Yes.
But I also really loved playing. I got really far with like a Zoe TF deck, which is like basically Zoe Nami. It was like basically exactly Zoe Nami, but it was playing the good TF Fizz cards instead. That was really fun. I wanted to throw out here, because we were just talking about it, my least favorite
Go for
thing.
it. Yeah.
And it's not a particular meta. It's actually a meta that I loved. The like deep Thresh Nasus TLC stuff. Like I really enjoyed playing that. But I hated, until I learned the TLC mirror, I didn't hate it because it just felt random and weird. But as soon as you learn it, it's really interesting. But the deep mirror and the Thresh Nasus mirror are both really annoying, because if you are paying 100% attention to everything that happens into the game, you will always win. But like you just like for the Thresh Nasus mirror, you have to like count slays like the entire game and like write them down on a piece of paper.
Yeah, that's what I did.
And I like just really didn't like having to do that.
Yes.
And then the same for the deep mirror.
Deep was worse.
Yes, it's way worse because they toss like 10 cards and they have 5 cards left in your deck. And
just-
like you know what those cards are. Like if you had perfect memory, you would know what every one of those cards were.
Right.
You just, I mean, like, it's just, you can't write down every single card they toss. Like, there was all like a toss 4 at burst speed and then play a Dead Blue Wanderer. Like, there's just no way that you can actually do that.
Yeah.
And like, that was just super annoying to me.
Yeah, every time I played the Thresh Nasus mirror, not even in tournament, but like in ladder, in like Masters ladder, I would like open like a little notes. And I would just like type I
I didn't.
Every
It was
time
why I
there
was bad
was
at
a
the mirror.
Yep.
It looked like a little tally march, so that was cool. And I never, ever did it with deep. Never once. I've never gone in, even when I played against it in a tournament, I did not have the patience or the time of day, or like, especially because I want to spend so much time thinking about the game. Like, I don't want to be writing all these things down. So I never made that
But
deep.
the thing about that mirror is
tried
like,
to get you guys to have a deck tracker. I just never could.
but it doesn't didn't do the toss thing.
Yeah, it does.
It does. Yeah.
It does the toss thing. Especially in tournaments when you like know their deck lists, you can like go back through their tossed cards. By the way, if you're trying to be like, if you're looking something that's going to give you an edge, a deck tracker is going to give you an edge. And because it is legal and you can do it,
You should use it.
You should use it if
made
you are
my
looking to
computer
get every
lag.
edge you can.
I had one that like didn't work with it for something, or maybe I just was bad at looking at the toss cards. I don't know what happened.
Mine just made my computer lag a little bit, so that's
Yeah,
why
I
I
mean,
stopped
that's
using
obviously
it.
right.
Which was like,
That's totally fair.
that was pretty much it. But I do highly recommend using it so that you don't have to get a notepad out and track
Yeah, absolutely.
tosses. Though hopefully that's mostly behind us at this point, but you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hugh?
So my favorite meta was just 100%. This isn't a hard question for me, thankfully. It was TF Fizz meta.
Oh my.
It just was. I like, if TF Fizz still existed in the state it had been, that would probably be my favorite deck. As it stands, Zoe Lee is still my favorite deck, and I think always will be. It's just, I don't know, so much fun. That deck just one-hitting people with Lee Sin was, and then finding the way to do it. I don't know.
It's dope. That
It's
deck's
great.
just so sick.
Yeah,
And
it's incredible.
Also, honestly, my favorite wins were ones where I'd suit up a single goat.
Yep,
and
those were the best every time.
And eventually my 10-8 goat with overwhelm
The goat
would kill
goat?
you. Exactly. But yeah, no, the TF Fizz meta was my favorite for sure. At no point did I feel like I was losing games to variance. I felt like I was losing games to my play. And that is a point that I just love in a game.
That happens when your deck is stupid consistent.
Yep, exactly. It turns out when you draw your deck every game, the only reason to lose is they draw their deck faster or you messed up.
Pretty
Usually.
much, yeah.
Yeah, like, part of it was the deck was definitely too good, but
The deck was too good, but it was really fun.
yeah, but there were so many lines. So, oh god, it was so
You
interesting.
just got to draw so many cards, and they were all fleeting, so you didn't know which ones to play. That deck was sweet.
Yeah,
I really
no,
liked it.
absolutely adore that deck, and it's probably for the best that it no longer exists. But maybe it would be fine now, since we're kind of having a similar problem with Vandal City drawing infinite cards, but the cards are definitely worse because you're not actually drawing them out of your deck. Anyway,
Okay, well, if you get TF Fizz back, then I want Fiora back.
the same.
I would actually love to play ethical. Like I was just thinking about how Legends of Runeterra is really interesting because every season, 3 or 4 decks do end up being the best. They rise to the top, and then they get their knees cut off with nerfs. And then the next season, the same things happen, and they almost always get their knees cut off with nerfs. And unnerfing all of it, everything being the most powerful version of itself it's ever been. Like,
It'd be really interesting.
that would be interesting. And what would also be interesting was the best 3 decks from each seasonal taken and played against each other, right? Like, so not the best, like not
So like the
not-
winning seasonal deck list from season 1 versus the winning seasonal deck list from season 2
Yeah,
with
yeah.
respective cards.
Yeah, it's not like it's Fiora Shen, but it also gets to play the new good Demacia cards.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not like the best version of Fiora Shen that could theoretically exist. It's like the best version that did exist.
Yeah.
At each point, playing against each other could also be really interesting. It's unfortunate that you could do that with Magic and you can't do that with
Legends of Runeterra.
because the cards like physically change in the
Right.
client. Like MTGO, like cards are banned and stuff, so they like played friendly games with deck lists built out of the banned cards, and that was like a way to do it, but you just can't do it because the cards change in the client.
So, what do you think is the best deck of all time? Is it TF Fizz, Zerorelia, or is it something else?
That's a good question.
Because I feel like it is between those two, and it's
I think
probably TF Fizz, but
I think it is a Zero Aurelia.
it's really close.
It's really close because the problem there is that I think Azir Aurelia is beating TF Fizz most of the time.
Yeah.
Oh,
But-
that would be a horrid matchup.
Yeah, exactly. But I feel like TF Fizz overall is the stronger deck against.
And then Azirelia can't beat Fiora though.
That's true. Yes.
Well, so they did get, if you're counting the new tool that they got, the 4 mana
Divine Dance.
Divine
yes,
Dance.
Divine Dance absolutely smashes Fiora. Like it's not that deck is actively just good against Fiora. Even if she was 3/3, I think it would still be good against Fiora. So
I want to make a quick argument.
go for it.
Or I'm just gonna make a quick case for Zero Irelia here.
Okay.
I think that no deck has warped a format more than a Zero Irelia has.
But I don't think it means that means it's the best in the vacuum. Maybe the things around TFS were better. than the
So,
things around Aurelia.
I mean that's very reasonable, but I think my like headcanon for this is that like when I think back to the TF Fizz meta, like what were the things that were good? It was like TF Fizz,
Fiora Shen,
right?
Zoe was
Lee
fine.
Zoe. It was just all really powerful, like
Oh, Aphelios. was
Felios, like
Oh my God, Aphelios.
it was just really powerful. Like it was just powerful across the board, basically. Like
yeah, it was like playing Modern.
yeah.
It was like playing a more powerful format.
The bar to entry for your deck was a little bit, it had to be able to brawl against TF Fizz, but mostly it was just a power level thing. Like your deck has to be at least this tall to ride, otherwise you're just going to lose to all of us playing all of the best cards or the most efficient synergies or whatever, basically. And with Azir Irelia, I think we ended up playing a lot of decks that were kind of weird and janky and bad because they were good against Azir Irelia. And the meta formed around that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, it's a good argument.
So I, aside from Thresh Nasus, which is like that was like I think the like one really good deck that
Oh, that was the
also
deck
had a
that
lot of
wasn't Fiora.
that also had a lot of good game against Azir Irelia. But like when I think back to that meta, like I think of people trying to play like mono Fiora for like a week.
Okay, well,
or
that's always
two.
been a trap.
Yeah, but like that's when people were playing it and like trying to win. And there were like these mono Sparklefly decks
Yep.
that were just like championless Sparklefly, like that were just trying to beat Azir Irelia because that was the only thing people could figure
Radiant
out to
Guardian
do.
was like the best
Yeah,
card
like
in the game.
yeah, exactly. Like Radiant Guardian was at an all-time high. Like
Yeah.
I've just never seen a meta where people are whipping out cards that we haven't played in 5 seasons because we just can't beat Azir Irelia. And that's what that meta felt like to me. So
I buy
that's
that
why I
argument.
think that Azir Irelia is the best ever.
I think that is a very good argument. I don't have an equally good one for TF Fizz, and I didn't play the deck, so I just played my Zed Fiora deck and ate,
So
TF Fizz. Yeah,
here's
I mean,
mine.
that was
Aphelios is nonsense broken, and
Okay,
TFS was
Aphelios-
cleanly the best deck.
Aphelios might actually be.
Aphelios was nonsense broken, but TFS was cleanly the best deck.
It was.
Like wasn't close.
Yeah.
Wait, did Aphelios exist?
I don't know if it was
for a
clear to me,
while
but it was-
after.
Yeah,
TFS
because
was banned?
Aphelios. Yeah,
Yeah.
because like TFS got nerfed and then Aphelios Veil Temple was after that, right?
Yeah.
Because like we got Aphelios, but we didn't get Veil Temple until the patch where TFS got nerfed, if I'm correct, or like until
No,
after,
we
right?
got Aphelios and
Veil
Veil Temple at the same time, but I do think that TF Fizz got nerfed before we got those.
Okay.
No.
No?
Because remember, because Aphelios TF was the deck at the seasonal.
Yeah, that deck
Oh my
was-
God, yes, we
Yeah.
did a whole episode on
crazy.
what
Yeah.
TF deck are you bringing?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true. So,
That's a good point. I mean,
That
TF
is-
Aphelios was really busted.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
That
it was
deck- I
really
mean,
good.
because people were still playing TFS on ladder, right? But like the top like 20 of master, like the top 100 of masters was like all TF Aphelios, like almost exclusively or something like
a
that.
lot,
Honestly,
yeah.
I could maybe even have an argument made for it.
I feel like that deck still loses to Zeralia though.
Oh, I think so too.
Yeah. So,
That deck,
Which is
that
funny
deck has the
'cause
best nut draws of all time,
Well, yeah.
I think.
I agree.
But like, we're probably not talking about the Defiant Dance version because it's definitely a worse version.
Yeah.
even
Yes,
though-
I
yeah,
agree.
I agree
If
with
we're
that.
taking
Well, okay,
us-
but like
if we're taking a snapshotted moment.
yeah, I mean it. Also, though, if you're like unnerving the cards, I think the deck still plays Defiant Dance.
No, but Defiant Dance wasn't out yet.
Right, I know, but what I'm saying is like if you're playing the best version
Oh,
now,
then it
like
could
if you're
be, yeah,
unnerving
yeah,
the cards,
it would
yeah,
play-
I
it would
understand
play
what you're saying
Defiant
though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to
Are those, yeah, I think those are kind of the only decks in contention for best ever, right?
I
Are there
think,
any other?
I think so.
I think
wanna-
you've
There's been a Champless Burn deck or two that like.
Oh, right.
Maybe,
Remember
like,
that,
way back.
Boom Crew rookie that just like killed the
Yeah, when
the
Boom
Fiora.
Crew Rookie was a 1/4.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's messed up.
Boom Crew Rookie is a 1/4.
It was a
was.
1/4.
Yeah, for a long
That's
time.
nuts.
Then Crimson Disciples, a 2-mana 2/3 that said when effort survive damage, deal them 2.
Instead of
one.
That said 2.
Yes,
said
it dealt
2.
so
Oh
much
my
damage.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It-
and then and then Imperial Demolition. So it was when Imperial Demolitionist came out.
you would like target it and for them.
Yeah, because
That's
that card didn't
insane.
exist for in
What the
alpha or beta.
Yeah, it was a really, really good burn deck.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's crazy.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so it could have maybe been that because
There are also these nab decks that like were so the pilfered goods was 2 mana and black merchant was a 2/2. So
Yeah.
like you just like could just like rip and it took it off the top of the deck and like it could take champions or some bullshit. Maybe it couldn't.
take champions, but it take it off the top of the deck.
Yeah, so you would steal their Omen Hawked cards.
That's really
Good
nice. That's freaking nice.
It wasn't. The best deck was not definitely not a nab deck.
Definitely not that though. Yeah.
It was definitely better. But yeah, no.
I mean, but like Jack the Winter and Riptide Rex and Yordle Grifter were all cards in that deck that have gotten nerfed. It had unnerfed Make It Rain, like which is now
was a good deck.
now right.
yeah, but
really
those
good.
cards are all better in other decks than they
reasonable.
were in that deck. I think.
That's reasonable.
So we've looked back. What about looking forward? Where do you want the game to go? I mean, where would you be happy with it ending up? Are you happy with where the game is? And
It's kind of weird, like thinking about this in like the form of like, what is my like send off wishes for LOR? Like I'm not
Right,
gonna,
yeah.
I'm not going to come back next week and say what I like or don't like about this patch or whatever.
exactly,
like,
yeah.
So, as a summation, like I think the things that I've liked the most in Legends of Runeterra are the interactive play-to-play between the players with the pass system. I think the pass system and passing being an integral part of the strategy of the game is one of my personal favorite aspects of the game. So I really hope that they kind of stay true to that a little bit. It feels like maybe a little bit along the way we've kind of gotten bogged down by just playing as many creatures as you can in some metas.
Yep.
Those haven't been those haven't always been my favorite, though. I mean, honestly, this last one was kind of like that, and I really liked it. So maybe a little bit hasty, but I really hope that they stay true to their core mechanics that make the game really interesting. We have all 10 regions now. I like the mechanics they have. I like a lot of them. I would like to see a lot of archetypes explored deeper as opposed to like more different new ones, I think, because it feels like a lot of our cards, like the card batches,
Yeah.
a lot of the times they don't mix very well.
Just a new deck. Yeah. it's
Yeah.
just a new deck.
Yes, I think, we've been seeing more and more of that. I was discussing with someone on Reddit. I say discussing, it's probably more like arguing, about how like power creep, this game has done a really good job with power creep. But then I kind of realized that, well, it's been a little bit less recently. There have been more expansions that have to do more with themselves and less to do with more of the old cards. There is that.
So my general
I
theme
do
is like
think that might be a forward compatibility thing. If like foundation cards end up like dropping off the format, that might
that's
be
very
like, a really
possible.
important
Yeah.
part.
So like basically I want them to add more stuff to the archetypes they have, especially a lot of the fan favorite ones that are really interesting.
Yep.
And I think that Riot probably has a good idea of what those are.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
They really have their finger on the pulse of the community, I think. So I would like to see them explore those options more. I'm very curious to see what they're going to do with the format of the game, or if we're ever going to get like a standard or wild type thing like Hearthstone did.
Right. Yep.
I'm very interested to see what they do with that, because we've talked about it before, and it seems like, I mean, we've come up with a few ideas that are pretty basic, but none of them really stuck to me as like, yes, this is what I want to happen. So I hope they come up with something that like blows my mind for a format.
You're referring to like having only certain cards be available, whether it be foundations or whether it be like the latest 3 sets that have come out or whatever.
Something like that. Basically just limiting a card pool, because as your game gets older, you basically are required to limit your card pool
Right, or else the
in
power
order
creep
to
runs away.
combat power
Or you
creep.
become Yu-Gi-Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, or you become Yu-Gi-Oh, which is Yu-Gi-Oh. So
Yeah.
it's not the worst ever, but I
don't
hope
wanna
that the
go
future
there.
of Legends of Runeterra is not that.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because the last 3 large sets that you would say cordon off leave you with, way more Bandle City, Shurima, and I don't know what the other one, Targon.
Targon, was that the 7th region? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, Bandle City was 10.
Bandle City, Shurima,
Shurima was 9.
8. What was 8?
I think it's Targon, right?
Targon?
I think it was Targon.
And
Yeah,
then
'cause we
7
started with
was
6.
Yeah, and then 7
was Bilgewater.
Yeah, okay.
So right, but you end up with way more of those regions because they're doing region releases. So like it feels like they'll have to do a couple sets and then be able to be like the last couple, and that'll be really interesting. I think the game's great. I think that they should keep trying to explore things like Lab of Legends. Lab of Legends is some of the most fun I've had playing a card game.
Yeah.
It is really unfortunate that, like, I've been thinking about why kind of a little bit of the fire died for Legends of Runeterra for me. And a big part of it is that I'm a really social person. And the reason that Magic is always going to be part of my life is, like, all of my friends play Magic. And I met a lot of my friends playing Magic. I mean, me and Nico started playing Magic together in, like, 4th and 5th grade. And, like, that's why we're friends now, a solid, like, 15 years later. So, like, and maybe I did this to myself in that I didn't play as many community tournaments as I should have and didn't scrim as much as I should have, because that is really like a community element of the game. But like wanting to play in person and wanting to play more tournaments than ladder, because ladder is such a like isolated experience. It's just like you bang your head against the greater collective players.
I would love to be able to like show up to a Legends of Runeterra local 1K and just like bring my phone.
Legends
And
of
just like
Runeterra
sit
LAN
down,
party, baby.
Yeah, just like sit down
Oh my
against
God.
my opponent like I would
Yeah.
at a match of Magic the Gathering or my favorite other tabletop game, and we just both pull out our phone and be like, "Oh, how you doing, man?" And we could talk and play our match. That would be fun,
yeah.
right?
That would
Like,
be awesome.
wouldn't that be sweet?
That would
Yeah,
be
really,
so
really cool.
sweet.
That's a wish for the future for me. I think that would.
Be very cool.
Yeah, I mean, it seems a little ridiculous
Yeah.
because like the whole idea is that we don't have to do this and we can play from
Yeah,
home.
it'd be a community thing for sure.
Yeah. But like at the same time, like it doesn't seem so ridiculous to me. I would have said that idea was ridiculous before quarantine, like before COVID.
Yeah.
But now that I've like taken this year and a half or 2 years away, and like every single time I ask people like, "Oh, are you playing Magic at all?" Like these people are playing Magic for 15 years. So I was like, "No, I don't have any desire to play Magic online. Like I just play the game for the people mostly." Like,
Yep.
And like that is not a niche opinion in the Magic the Gathering community. I would say that is the general population of Magic the Gathering players. And I mean, obviously there's a whole lot of crossover between Magic and Legends of Runeterra. And I think that Legends of Runeterra players, even if they've never gone to a paper event or a local event or anything like that before, it's really fun. So.
LOR certainly has often better gameplay and better balance than the Magic format at the time. Like that's the thing that
almost
drew all
certainly.
of us to it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
But I think one of the problems is that Magic has standard and draft and modern and legacy. Like there are just so many different experiences that you can have. And so as LOR continues to grow, I look forward to there being more of that. That's why I mentioned Lab of Legends is like having that difference, like just is so huge, because when I don't want to play standard, I'll play draft or whatever.
Yeah. And Hugh.
Yeah. So there is one particular thing that I don't want to see in the future, and that is this. It seems like they're trying a thing. I don't know if they're still going to keep doing this, but they seem to have tried a thing where, for the sake of keeping the game fresh, they just change a bunch of shit. Just like it does. It's not. I'm not going to say arbitrarily. It's not like they're not just like rolling a die and like putting a number on a new card. But it does feel like they're changing more than they think they need to in order to just shake trees.
I actually agree. Like I had that. It's so hard to like know where you got that impression, but I had that exact same thought.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like it. It feels like they're trying to cater to all these people who are like, I'm bored.
Balance.
Yeah, like give us more balance patches. I'm bored. Do something new. And it's like, well, there's a line. Like you can't just constantly change everything. You like that would ruin the game.
I've been living with
think.
Lightning Bolt my whole damn life.
Yeah, like because it would also kind of just kill your competitive scene. Like the competitive players don't want to play a game where every other week so many cards change that they have to figure out a whole new metagame, and then you spend 2 weeks doing that, and then okay, it changed again. Like you don't.
It's funny because I actually think it's more detrimental to the casual scene than the competitive scene too, because your casual players who come back and play like 5 matches a week or whatever, are when they come back, like I had a friend who was learning the game. He was trying to put together Fiora Shen. Fiora got nerfed to be a 3/2. Fiora was completely unplayable. He played a few matches and he hasn't been back. And it's like
That's
fair.
good point.
That happens
actually.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, which is hard because we all play enough that we're free to play easily.
Right.
And so like when you're free to play, I do think that it is more detrimental to not have consistency. Like for casual people like it more because they can play whatever the fuck they want whenever they want, and new stuff will be good, and they can just keep experimenting. And maybe casual is the wrong word, because there's a specific type of player who likes that, and likes the shakeup. But like when people don't have full collections, it's brutal.
Yeah, I always forget about that because we've all had a full collection for so long that like I forget that
Call
people
you an enfranchised player.
just getting into the game in the past like month or 2 months. Like you're not gonna have a full collection unless you spent money.
Yeah.
And it's just that's how it's gonna be, and that's how every card game is.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're right. That actually, if you're a casual player who plays for fun a few times a week and you like this one deck that's not the best deck but decent and you're winning games, and all of a sudden like your deck is the casualty of some tier 1 deck.
Yeah.
Fiora is a
tough.
very good example. Like you there's a bunch of things you can do with Fiora as far as like pairing her with various regions, and then she's a 3/2 and she's dead now. And on top of that, Mini-Morph exists, so like
Oh yeah, she's really dead.
Yep.
no more Fiora.
It could maybe be unnerfed because of Mini-Morph exists.
Yeah.
I think so, but
Whatever.
whatever.
So I actually think that one of the things that Riot could do, and this is I have a bunch of little desires, but like honestly my biggest desire, and I think one of the reasons that I stopped playing Runeterra as much is just because there is no limited format. And for people who don't know what that means, it's essentially Expedition, but there's no reason to play Expedition.
Yeah,
for
the
me.
problem, I love expeditions, but they're
Yeah, there's no ranked.
They don't give you
no
anything.
rank.
There's
I
no
already
rewards.
have a full collection.
Yeah, well, and the
Yeah.
thing is that I don't, right? I don't have a full collection, but I still don't have a reason to play Expedition because it takes hours. I mean, it takes like
It's a long
4
time, yeah.
hours to do the full run if I don't 7-0 it the first time, and 2 if I do. It might even take longer. And then I'm rewarded with like
an
an
extra,
epic card.
yeah, an extra
And-
2,000 shards.
Yeah, which is just honestly not worth it. And if you look at Hearthstone, if you look at Magic, if you look at there's another one that I can't think of right now, but I mean these games have multiple formats to play and reward their players for doing so. And Lab is very cool, and Noble bringing it up, absolutely. Like that, it's an excellent alternative game mode, but it just isn't quite the same. It doesn't scratch that itch that Draft in Magic does for me, where it's a skill testing format that doesn't have to do with you putting together 40 cards and playing them against someone else, and instead has to do with you trying to craft it out of random cards that you're given choices out of.
Yeah, I think part of that is that the rewards just aren't there. Like you have to get to 7 wins, the maximum amount of wins, to just pay for your expedition.
Yes.
Whereas in Hearthstone and in Magic, you get to like halfway there and you're already above rate for what you bought in for. And then if you keep going past that, the rewards increase massively.
4 wins in Hearthstone.
Yeah.
4 wins in Hearthstone at one point to get your arena entry back.
It was 7 when I was playing.
Yeah. So before they changed, so way back in Hearthstone, like before the first patch of Hearthstone, I think it capped out at 9 wins.
Okay.
Was it the same lose 2 in a row system?
No, it's you just got 3 losses.
Yeah.
In arena. So and at that point, so I think the current form of Hearthstone, you need to get 7 wins out of a maximum of 12 to go even or whatever.
Still
To
only have
bust
3
even?
losses?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Magic is 7 and
So
3.
this is really
But,
interesting though, because what Runeterra tried to do, it feels like, is create a system where people could play their limited format. They can play their, expeditions or arenas or whatever without having to put too much money in, right?
Yep.
In Magic, it's like a $10 enterprise, right? Like it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And what Runeterra did was they were like, okay, let's make it lower stakes. But by making it lower stakes, they also removed the upper bounds of it, right? And the problem with that,
Where you're like making gems and going infinite.
exactly. So it's an enfranchised player thing to really talk about and say, well, I can't generate a collection this way, right? But then if you look at what that actually does, is it means because there's no real reason to, and people who consistently went 3-3 in Hearthstone Arena, or who even consistently lose in Magic at drafts, still want to play those things even though they're expensive, which is weird because it's you ask, like, it's a losing enterprise, but then you go on Twitch and you're like, okay, well, why is no one streaming Expeditions? No one streams Expeditions because no one wants to watch them. But
It doesn't even have in-game currencies at stake.
But if you want to go to Magic, if you want to go to Hearthstone, people do watch them. And it's because there's something at stake, and so there's a reason to watch them and try to get better.
Yeah, totally.
And also, it helps a lot that those games have tournaments centered around those formats. Right?
Oh,
We've
that's true,
never
yes.
seen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've seen Hearthstone. I've seen a few Hearthstone tournaments attempt to essentially run arena tournaments where they they'll let you like basically draft a deck and then you build that deck in your collection and play against other people who did the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
That type of format. And those were always really fun and very interesting, and I loved watching them. And I played a lot of Arena and Hearthstone. They were really cool. Obviously, Magic has a bunch of draft-based competitive gameplay.
Yes.
Less now, which is a shame.
Less now, which is a shame. And I've always loved Legends of Runeterra's Expedition, and there's just not a competitive format for it at all in any fashion. And I love it, and I can't play it very much because I am a huge spike. And when there is nothing on the line at all, even if I love the deck I'm playing, I loved drafting it, I love the cards I'm playing, I'm enjoying the games. At the end of the day, I'm going to be like, oh, guess I'm going back to ladder. Like,
Yeah.
I will note that it used to be really good. It used to be 1,500 for 2 shots. You were guaranteed a champ wildcard, and 1,500 was the price of a champ wildcard. So if you went 7 wins, it was a free champ wildcard, basically. So you were building a collection really effectively because you had 2 shots at it, and it was giving you a lot of rewards.
That is notably how I built my collection.
Yeah. But it just
back in the
doesn't
day.
work.
But it doesn't work anymore. So
Yeah, exactly. And like, you should never in a limited format be willing to draft your deck, look at your deck list, and just click retire run. Because I have done that so many times because I'm just like, this deck is clearly terrible, or at least I won't have fun playing it. I'm just going to click surrender now and draft another
there's
one.
so little stakes that you don't care at all.
Exactly.
And you know what I've been doing for the last I think I mentioned this a couple episodes ago, but like I needed an epic wild card an epic card the other day. I like ran out of my epic wild cards. That was wild. That hadn't happened before. And so I was like, man, how do I get these epic wild cards so I can play this deck? And I just went into Expedition and I had like 40 Expedition tokens because I hadn't played Expedition in like 40 weeks. And I went in and I just cashed out all 3 and immediately retired and got, my 3 wild cards and then some gems and left. And I was like, and that's been my interaction with Expedition in the last little bit. And that's that's disappointing. I really hope that they do something with it in the future.
Yeah, they just need to up the stakes, up the buy-in.
Up the stakes. Especially now that there's like enough enfranchised players that
They'll want it. Yeah.
they can support that. Like the scene is got to be big enough that you can support that type of entry.
It doesn't matter because I think they clearly wanted to lower the barrier to entry, but it doesn't matter how low the barrier to entry is if no one wants to enter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was also the thing. The wildcard you got from your vault every week was not that. It was an Expedition entry token. So you had to go through the Expedition process.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, so, and I just want to, make sure that everyone knows, I think the game is great. I think it's a great game. And,
game is great.
And these are just a few things that I think we would like to see going forward. But to talk more, this is the last episode of the podcast. And so one of the questions that was asked was about the creative process of actually putting it together. And for you 3, what was that like? What was the back end of it, and was it difficult? How did you come up with the ideas that you wanted to talk about? And why is it coming to an end now?
Yeah, so we are in our friend's house. We have a friend who's very generously lets us use this equipment. Which is why we've talked about this before, but it's why we have pretty good audio quality, if I can say so myself. Getting to get used some very expensive music recording equipment that they use. We were actually downstairs in this house at that poker game I recently mentioned.
We play our weekly poker game at this house.
Yeah, we were downstairs playing poker, and Hugh didn't actually show up that much, but it was one of the days that he was there, and one of us was like, I think it was me.
You.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I kind of want to do a podcast about Legends of Runeterra, and the 2 people that I wanted to do were in the room. Alex and Hugh were both there. And it was just kind of like, we were like, okay, and that was kind of the genesis of the idea. And we started thinking about it. And it just felt that at a time, we started this at a time where it felt like there was a lot less content for this game than there is now.
Very little.
Yeah, it felt like a
content.
perfect time to start,
I think,
and I'm really happy with when we made that decision.
Yeah, we were like one of the first podcasts on the scene for this game, and I mean,
there are like 3 like long running ones that are before us.
Yeah, there are a few that have been there before that were playing since even earlier. But like, I also really liked the niche that we scratched, because those 3 podcasts did not have a lot to do with the like competitive side of card gaming or Legends of Runeterra or mentality of that type anything. Their podcasts, while good, were just a much different atmosphere. You know, it was a lot more like, oh, I'm playing this sweet Tryndamere deck this week, and I'm gonna put Battle Fury on it and attack for 20 and atrocity at you. And then, you know, like, that's cool. I'm here for that content, but it was just a different market, right?
Totally. And we are all competitive players. We all really like this kind of stuff, like thinking about this stuff, like talking about this kind of stuff. And, you know, I'm really happy with the body of work that we ended up with, viewing it as kind of like a portfolio of like all of these things that we got to talk about. And I'm very happy with that. So we would have, in the beginning, we had more regular meetings of like what we're going to do, what content we're going to produce kind of thing. And honestly, recently that's tapered off, which is part of the reason that we decided it was probably time, when we were no longer making time to like really put a lot of time into what different contents we were going to be able to produce, because we just didn't have that time or that drive at this point, is part of the reason it kind of sputtered out. I think for me, like, this is not 100% the question, but like when I was like, maybe it's time to wrap this up while we're still going strong, was like kind of when we'd had trouble having a consistent day to record for like 4 weeks in a row. And so the podcasts were coming out on weird days. And I was like, we need to reevaluate if this is a thing that we can keep doing. And when we were all in the same place, it was awesome. And I don't know, that's I guess my 2 cents. Y'all have other stuff to say about the back end?
So the logistics did just become hard. And, you know, as we've mentioned, we've all gone and do different things. Things are keeping us busy. While I did just quit my job, so I have a bunch of free time.
Congratulations.
Now. Exactly. Woohoo! Thank you. I am now actually, I don't think I've told anyone but Adam and Eileen about this, but I am going to try and start an escape room.
Oh, dope.
Hell yeah, you are. Let's go.
Yeah, so I want to actually open a business here, and that will keep me extremely busy.
Very busy.
That's awesome.
Because I need to find leasings. I need to lease a space. I need to design. I want to design 3 rooms. Of varying sizes. That sounds
like a lot of work. Yeah. No,
yes, exactly. Yeah. And you know, I'm gonna get. My dad builds boats for a living and has for like 40 years, and I'm gonna get him to build
like a trap boat with
compartments
in it.
Maybe that could be one thing.
Cool.
But like, I just want something I've noticed. We went to a bunch of escape rooms recently, and something I've noticed is that like production value is decent, but not like super high. I want something like extravagant, and with his help, luxury. I can do extravagant, and I want that. I want to like pull like I want
some champagne to the guests when they walk in the door.
Well, one of my ideas is that like I want a big centerpiece. Like I want like a temple escape, like Indiana Jones type themed room, where in the center is like a big dais with like a rotating pegs, and like you find a crank at the start, and it has a square hole. And then like the puzzle is, as you complete puzzles, it'll open a chest, and like a different attachment will go onto that crank, and you'll put that in a slot and crank, and it'll reveal a new portion of the dais.
That sounds sick.
That's dope as hell.
And that's just my first idea. But like, I want to do this. This is something, because we've all, Noble, Alex, and I did Evian, a game. We worked together developing a game. And
that's how we met, actually.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
And we all loved that. We all love to do that. We all love working on games. They're working on Singularity right now, and unfortunately, you can't really make money making games.
You're right.
Yeah, I know, and it's all a passion project for us, and we, you know, and I love to do that, and I just like kept trying to think of ways to take what I enjoyed doing and make an actual living off of it, and this feels like something I could do.
Yeah.
And anyway, that's my big next project that is making this podcast take a back seat. And Alex obviously has his PhD program.
Yeah,
but,
you preempted the next question, which was, what's the future? So that's good.
Yeah.
That's really exciting. I knew literally none of that coming in, so it's really
that is
really
cool.
cool. To
I actually
hear
talked
about.
with Adam about it a little bit, but I knew basically.
Yeah,
that's
I'm
the first
sure
I heard.
Adam's
Super
probably
sick,
mentioned
yeah.
it.
So, as for me, the creative podcast or the creative process for the podcast, excuse me, and like the starting of the podcast and all that. So, I mean, these guys have touched on a lot of it, but the things I want to say is, we'd all been friends for quite a while, and you might have gotten this sense from the group of us, but we're pretty good at talking about whatever, and I do mean anything, and so. We have times where we just get together and talk about games for 2 hours, and we wouldn't record it or anything. 3 hours, 5 hours, 10 hours, whatever. We would have those sessions where we'd literally just talk about game theory, game design, how to be better at games, how to do these things. And so it felt like a pretty natural like progression for our friend group, at least, especially because at least for Hugh, like I'd seen Hugh less and less over like since Avian had stopped and like the start of quarantine. So this was a great way to see Hugh more.
Yep.
And and the podcast, as far as ideas and content went, I think it was really fun. I think we had a couple really good ideas that carried a lot of the weight of the podcast that we like used a lot.
Your idea for questions was the same.
Getting questions.
Questions every
User
week.
questions.
Y'all's questions. Oof, very nice. Good
So
job, everyone.
they made our episodes so easy every week, honestly. Because I mean, most of the time we would come in and we'd be like, okay, here's what I want to talk about this week. Most of the time we'd have an idea what we were going to want to talk about the next week by the time we were even done recording.
Yeah.
Especially because LOR has such a like cyclical, like seasonal meta and patch, and, right? Like it's pretty easy.
We had our seasonal prep episode. We had our seasonal episode. We had our halfway meta episode.
Yeah, we have our
first
patch
impressions.
updates. Yeah. So we can,
Some spoilers. Yeah.
and then we have some mental stuff in the, some like mental talks and burnout and stuff like that.
Yeah.
For flavor episodes that we toss on. So it felt pretty easy every week to have something to talk about. And even when I didn't feel like we had a particularly strong topic on any given week, I would be very confident that we could vamp for a half hour or 45 minutes and then do listener questions for a half hour or 45 minutes and have an interesting episode. And honestly, I'm quite happy with how that worked out because I do think it did go quite well.
The chemistry that is here, like we can, the three of us and Nico too can very easily.
I take no credit. It's all you three. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. We could all sit here talking about games.
And honestly, that is something, as I've become less interested in LOR, that like wrapping this up was like, wow, like I'm gonna miss this. Like I was like, can we just talk about random games?
Yeah, maybe.
And I was like,
Honestly, maybe,
but
you
like,
know?
yeah, but that's a whole different project. I definitely intend to like keep talking about games and writing about games and working on games for the foreseeable future. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm just maybe not going to be, not going to call myself Champ Select, and I'm not going to talk about Legends of Runeterra quite as much.
Right.
I just like wanted to say, like, I think that the process of thinking about how to get better at games, how to win games, how to think so that you can improve is just such an important, like, fundamental part of like how you can make your life better.
Yeah.
And I think that like talking through that through the lens of games might seem like kind of silly to someone who doesn't play a lot of games, but like so much of being good at games is understanding how you yourself think, how you yourself play, how other people think, and figuring out how to not make decisions based on information that you shouldn't be making decisions on, not be biased, to overcome your biases because like you're like, oh, I'm unlucky, or is it that the deck is bad, or is it then like really deconstructing your thinking. And I think that process of that like metacognition, that process of thinking about how you're thinking and how you can think better is so fascinating to me and so important for everyone to think about, and it's why I've loved doing this, and it's what I'm going to miss the most.
That was like, I mean, maybe I can speak for I'm pretty sure I can speak for everyone here when I say this, but like, I think our general favorite topics to like talk about and stuff was that type of like, mental fortitude. And I think they resonated a lot with our listeners from what we heard back. We got a lot of positive feedback on those episodes, and they were all really, really fun. And
The first mental episode was when I knew we had something. Like,
Yeah,
when
that was
I
a
was like, oh,
good
wow.
episode.
Yeah,
that was like
yeah.
episode 4.
Yeah, something like that.
That was a good
I
episode.
thought it was like 7, but yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
I don't remember exactly, but
we
like,
did one pretty early on.
Luckily, they're all
because-
posted on this app, and so I can answer right.
We did one pretty early on because this was an idea that we had at the start of like,
Yeah.
we want to teach people how to get good at this new game.
Yeah. We want to give people the tools to improve themselves.
Yeah, we want to teach them to fish instead of lead. Yeah, right. You can teach a horse to drink. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make a drink. Or
That's
you
not
can-
the one
got
you
it.
want.
That's not the right one.
It's
The other
one of
water
those-
related. It's you can teach
Yeah.
a man to fish.
Give a man a fish or teach him to fish.
Yeah, give a man a rod, he'll eat for the rest of his life. Whatever. Yeah. So we really tried to talk a lot about the process, and we've all played card games for a long time.
So long.
So and this is all conversations that we've all had the luxury of having with amongst each other.
Yeah.
Right. Like these were not half baked ideas that we came on the mic and spouted. These were like our first time thinking. Like I have had genuine individual conversations about how to improve, how to look at yourself, how to do these things, and introspectively do them myself. I've been doing these things for years, so it really felt like the best thing that I could
Contribute.
our group could teach a population
Yeah.
was how to teach themselves.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I think we did that really well, which I'm very proud of.
And Noble brought it up, but I'm glad he did. But he's right when he says there's so much about teaching yourself how to play this game that you can just apply to your life. Like you have to know yourself so well. And the one of the hardest parts about learning anything is getting to know how you personally learn, because everyone is different. And once you start to figure out how you operate and how your brain works and how you can teach yourself, you can teach yourself to do anything. Like it helps across the board with anything you do for the rest of ever. Like if you know that a certain thing does not work for you, you can stop doing that thing when you try and pursue other projects. The idea of not tilting or not, performing worse when you feel bad. That applies to everything. The concept of discipline, like having the ability to go and consistently do a thing at a certain time, like having that consistency and teaching yourself that consistency is something you can apply to absolutely everything, whether it's, working out or studying. It's not just this game. It's how
I wish I was as good at studying as I was at Legends of
Oh
Runeterra.
my God! The amount of
I
times
don't. I take my Legends of Runeterra check.
Yeah,
please.
like we all have just this ridiculous archive of Magic the Gathering cards in
Yeah.
our head, just a library, and we can't remember 3 questions on a test. Like
You know that Dr. Seuss place, the places you'll go?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
the
want the
places
things
you'll go.
that I would know if I didn't know this much shit about the
the things that
would know.
See,
The formulas
everything
I remembered, the
it's
random historical facts.
so funny though, because I credit games, like I credit Magic the Gathering and I credit, Dota and the video games that I played, StarCraft, with teaching me how to learn.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Oh my
like,
God,
I mean,
100%.
school was helpful-ish, but it was really games that taught me how to study.
I agree.
So for Legends of Runeterra, when I'm going into a seasonal and I'm like thinking about it and saying like, what card choices should I do? Sitting down and looking through dozens and dozens of different lists, speaking with dozens of different people about the different merits of different cards, and then testing them each in like a scientific method. Like it was games that put that in my head, and it was games that reinforced it. And so I can take that forward and use it for things that are productive for how I want to live my life.
And
Or other games.
And
Or other
And
games.
arguing about your opinions based on your evidence versus someone
Yes.
else's evidence and your subjective experiences
Yeah.
is like
also
always
extremely
so fun.
valuable.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Honestly.
It's very
well,
fun.
it's
if
fun
people in
with video
general
games.
were better at that, we would have a lot less problems.
Yeah, I agree. And there's
and
this,
understanding our biases of the information that we are allowed, like that we have perceived. We're like, I'm like 05 with that deck. Like,
Yeah.
understanding you're allowed to be wrong and there's nothing wrong with being wrong.
Yeah,
is
that-
that alone is a great
Yeah.
concept to learn.
It is.
and compartmentalize.
It's a tough pill to swallow, but once you have and you're like, oh, this isn't that bad, and now I'm better for it, you're like, okay,
Yeah, like
hold on
dealing,
now.
dealing with the bad draws too.
Yeah,
dealing
exactly.
with losing
Trying
too.
to, yeah.
50% of people who play Legend of Runeterra, any given Legend of Runeterra game, lose. Like that's
Yeah.
just a fact. Like,
Yeah, you're gonna lose. Just being okay with there is so much here that we could apply to real life.
Yeah.
And 0.01% of people in any given tournament are going to win.
Yeah,
Right?
totally.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
it's crazy.
So you're gonna lose? That makes it way more fucking impressive when the same person wins a monologue.
Yeah, it
no
does.
joke.
You know, and that process of like not only learning but of like trying to achieve mastery over something, like trying to really prove that you are just really fucking good at something, is, you know, having those consistently strong results is, you know, something I don't think I quite achieved in Legends of Runeterra. I think I was better than the average player. I made masters every season for like 4 seasons in a row. I've definitely fallen off the wagon. I'm a little washed at this point, but
It's all right.
but like that process is something that you know, they're a large draw to for me, and is very like, I like that test of you know, test of talents.
Yeah.
I do this thing with like my hobbies where I always get I have this like cycle where when I get into hobbies, I get really obsessive over like the thing that I'm doing at the time, and I very rarely have like more than one like active thing that I'm trying to do or learn. And one of the most fun things for me in every game is the like improvement process. That like, oh, play the game for a half hour, I suck, go watch 15 hours of research, come back, learn all the things, see myself improve. Mm-hmm. That's like the most fun part of every game for me, which like which took me until probably about 2 weeks ago when I was sitting at home, or I don't know, maybe I was sitting at home, maybe I was driving, maybe I was in the shower. I don't really remember, but I was having this thought where I was like, man, like I always do this thing with my hobbies where I get into them, I get really into them, I try to get good at them, and I'm pretty good at getting pretty good. For lack of a better way to phrase it. Yeah. I think I've gotten good at refining myself to like, if I'm focusing my attention on a hobby, trying to be better at it, I can pretty consistently get to be in the upper echelon ish. Yeah. With, you know, about 6 months or however many months of dedicated like work and put into it. What that, you know, it's not easy. It's never easy. I'm not a god gamer or anything. You know, I don't just pick up a random game and go 30-0 and drop a nuke on everybody.
Right.
Like, it's not me. Right. But I love the like improvement aspect. And it took me until about 2 weeks ago when I was like, why do I just every time I feel like I get so close to like reach to being at the absolute top, right? Like I get so close. I'm like I'm in the top 1% every time, but I can never be in the top 0.01% that you really need to be the best. And Legends of Runeterra was like, I mean, I'm not done playing Legends of Runeterra or competing at Legends of Runeterra right now. Like I'm working on a PhD program. That's my priority, but I'm not done competing in Legends of Runeterra. I feel like I haven't quite yet hit that yet. And I realize it's because I just love the improvement process so much that I find myself gravitating to other games. That I can go through that improvement again, which is, you know,
and the first 50% is so much easier than the last 2.
Yeah, and you see, like, yeah, exactly, and you see it so much more in the early stages of like improvement.
Wow, I'm getting better at this.
Yeah, like I'm way better. Oh man, I just, you know, like I would never have played around that card, 2 weeks ago, but I got blown out by it. And now I'm better. Right?
And I just want to say real quick, I do think we should move to a different topic or / wrap up. But like,
yeah,
when you have a new hobby and you do it for a year, it is really easy to like skyrocket from where you started to where you end up. But then like there's a reason that the true masters of any given thing have been doing it for 10 plus years, right? Like it's a lot less exciting to grind out those last couple things over a ton of time and continue learning, because it's a lot less exciting process to be like, oh, I understand so much better every day that I'm playing this.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, what's the next?
It's kind of just the way it is, but yeah, I love it.
So is there anything you want to say to your viewers? Any appreciation?
Man, there's so much appreciation. Like it's hard to know where to start. It's been a crazy journey. I've loved it. It was very fun. It was always so much fun to actually like get in the room and record the episodes. Maybe a little pain on the technical side from, you know, here to there, but that's to be expected whenever you're dealing with technology of any kind. So, but all in all, it was always super fun. I'm super happy to all the to all the listeners, all the viewers. I guess we don't have viewers. All the listeners who've been with us for however long you've managed to tune in. If there's anybody out there that's been listening since episode 1, I don't know if there are, but if you are, thank you so much. We really appreciated it. It was always a blast coming on talking about Legends of Runeterra. I'm really excited to see where Legends of Runeterra goes. I don't think this will be the last you hear from me in either this scene or others. I really like doing like casting, commentary, this type of thing. It's really my wheelhouse. So whether it be Legends of Runeterra or another game or on my own personal stream at some point or whatever, or casting something, I'm sure this won't be the last time you've heard from me. So maybe you'll see me at the top of a seasonal tournament in the near future. So
yeah, and I want to say both thank everyone who's come this far with us. Just absolutely awesome. I've been floored by the amount of stuff in our Discord, and like some community members do like way more posting than any of us do in there, which is just awesome.
Great.
We're awesome to find y'all and be able to bring together a community. And that process of creation of a community is a really big part of why I enjoyed this so much. And yeah, you'll hear more from me. And most importantly, I hope that us maybe getting to talk a little bit about that this shows you that like you can make content too. Like we were just 3 people sitting in a room. Like you can start streaming. You can, you absolutely have the potential to do that. And so, so long and thanks for all the burble fish.
Yeah, and don't let that.
Waiting on that one. Oh, he's been waiting for that one
such
for
a
so
good one.
long.
That's really
dude.
good.
Oh,
Longest con.
Really good.
I came up with it 30 seconds ago.
oh, wow, that makes it way better, honestly.
It's really good.
It's like Noble just said. Don't let yourself. If you want to create content, go for it. Don't let imposter syndrome get in the way of that, because there will never not be a time where I sit here thinking like, oh God, do I really know what I'm talking about? And clearly you feel that I know what I'm talking about. And I think I do know what I'm talking about most of the time. It just is still weird to think that there are, however many people who listen to what I say and like take it seriously. It's just, it'll never not be weird for me, but like, seriously, thank you, all of you. It's been amazing. It's been a great ride, and
Yeah, it's been so much fun. It's been a blast.
Yeah, I mean,
100%, yeah.
we wouldn't have gotten anywhere near this number of episodes if there hadn't been this kind of feedback and this kind of response.
I remember
from everyone.
I remember like the first time we like hit 100 people in our Discord or whatever. Like it was like
a little party.
ecstatic.
Yeah.
It was crazy. We had like our first episode got like 1 listen, 2, maybe 3, and they were like all our friends. I think
exactly.
And our like 5th episode got like 75 or something. Like all people we had no idea, and like episodes were getting like 200 or 300 listens, across various platforms an episode, which is like that's crazy. And I never thought that. It's almost hard to imagine the gravity of that, and we're a small podcast, relatively. Right?
Oh, we're
So
tiny.
It's hard to imagine the gravity of 300 people, like listening to what you have to say and applying it to their life. So, man, that's terrifying. Like, don't make the same mistakes I did, boys. stay away.
Or do.
Or do, they're fun.
Some mistakes are important.
Some
that is for
mistakes
sure.
are fun to make. So,
I have some thank yous that I want to send out to people who did some behind the scenes stuff that we're really thankful for. From the very beginning, our friend Ian Link made our logo, which was like very cool.
Yep.
Very nice looking. I still we thought about changing the name for a bit because like Champ Select fits, but like not 100%. But I liked the logo enough that I was like, let's just stay. Our friends, Jesse Chasson did a lot of behind the scenes Discord
he did the music.
work. Did the
The
music.
intro music and the outro music that you have heard every time, which is very good. Thank you so much.
Ironically, we don't actually hear that much.
Yeah. But I hear it a lot.
The only time I hear it was when I post
when
the
you're putting the
episode.
thing.
Yeah, I always
Yeah,
did the
absolutely.
uploads, so I heard it a lot. But
And then Stephen Copeland from our Discord, who ended up working with us on some marketing stuff and just kind of generally providing advice and stuff, which was just awesome. And then, of course, Nico, and then our other friends like Adam and Jake, who've done a ton of just discussing random
huge
topic
shout out,
ideas and stuff.
real quick, huge shout out to our audio producer Jake, who has done a thankless job for almost a
You should
for like
consider
almost a
thanking
year.
him.
Well, okay,
That's
we
not
thank him.
thankless.
Not thank him. We thank him. But
That's
he has done all of the work behind the scenes. You've never seen him on air or anything like that. And
Oh, yeah, he does all the editing.
he does all of the editing.
Yeah, it's
The
insane.
fact that we didn't have to like edit this is like I
Cat's
don't know
out
if
the
I had to
bag.
sit in this
Cat's
room
out
and
the
edit
bag.
for 2 hours every
Yeah, it would be
podcast. It would be
way more effort. So the fact that,
definitely a lot
that
of
Jake
songs, yeah.
puts all this together, he uploads it or he gets it to us in a nice, neat package, and he's done it every week for us. We could
45 weeks or
couldn't
something.
literally could not have done it without
Yeah,
him.
especially last week when Alex, it
that
seems
was
like you
unfortunate.
forgot to press the record button on your.
No, I pressed record. I have like an hour-long file with just no audio.
Oh, okay. Well, whatever. Yeah. So we didn't have an audio file for Alex. What we had, so what you heard on the episode, the last episode, was every time we call in with a Discord call, we do stick a mic in front of our phone that's outputting the audio.
Yeah.
And we happened for this episode, for the very first time, we turned down the volume on my phone to like just under half.
Because we didn't want the feedback in the other mics.
Exactly. Which was apparently been happening a little bit. And it just so happened that was the first and only time the Discord audio or the audio from the remote person didn't happen. And Jake still figured out a way
It was surprisingly listenable.
to make it work. And I thought we were going to have to scrap that last
I
episode.
thought it was just going to have to be completely banned. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought we were going to have to
But it
go
turned out
on.
good.
Yeah.
It just turned out great. Like, given the circumstances, it sounded incredible.
Yeah, and like you'd look on the screen, there'd be like normally you see like little sound jumps from where
Yeah,
you
it was
can
tiny.
hear
It
us.
was like tiny little
It
blips.
was literally non-existent for Alex, except for one tiny blip where Noble laughed. He literally, as Jake. So I came over and Jake was like trying to figure things out, and I like watched him for a bit, to like help him vet the audio. And he goes and he's like, yeah, all I see here is this little blip. I bet you it's Noble laughing. He goes, clicks on it, and we hear Noble's just like, we just hear Noble's like hiccup guffaw noise.
That's so good.
And then we're just like, yep, that's it.
There it
There
is.
it is. And so like, it's amazing. He ended up figuring out this little tool that he had literally never used before that like helped cancel out this hissing noise that was there. It was awesome. Like, thank you. Like, it was amazing.
We can't
He's been
thank Jake enough for all the work he's done. The podcast. If you've enjoyed the podcast, you should thank Jake too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jake.
You can't. I don't know how you'd be able to thank him, but maybe just some thanks, Jake.
We
in the
certainly
Discord.
won't give you his information because that would be weird.
Yeah,
That's
you
not
can type
allowed.
thanks, Jake, in the Discord.
Thanks, Jake, in the Discord.
thanks.
And maybe he'll see it someday. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, none of this would have been possible without him. None of it would have really been, some of it would have been possible, but most of it wouldn't have been without our listeners. Like, you guys carried us so much further than we expected.
I doubt we'd even have made it this far without all of the support we got.
Probably
But
wouldn't
it's fine because episode 9 is the Holy Burblefish, is titled The Holy Burblefish, and that was basically as far as we needed to get.
That was a good one. That was a good episode.
Yeah. Oh, I
must
would like to
admit.
thank Alex's bad takes for giving us a lot of content.
Oh my God. Alex consistently being wrong about card evaluation more than the two of us, because we were wrong a lot too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But like,
I was
that
wrong
was a
lot.
fun time.
I was wrong a lot. That's all right.
That's the process, baby.
You know?
Yeah.
We got some good memes.
Yeah,
out of
you're
it.
allowed to be wrong.
There was
There's
that-
nothing wrong with being wrong, and
There's
that is
that-
a very good lesson to learn.
There's that one picture of the Burblefish in the Supreme outfit afterwards,
Oh
where
my
I called
God.
that card garbage.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Yikes. Okay, well, that's a lot of reminiscing. Do you guys have anything else at all you want to add before I send it off one last time? Noble? Anything?
I'm good.
All right. So I want to thank you all for coming. Thank you, Nico, for being here and doing this
Absolutely.
interview with us. Thanks
Absolutely.
again to Dr. Blues for submitting a lot of the format and questioning for all that. I hope you guys liked this final episode. We got to talk a lot about us as a whole, what we're looking for in the future, our theories behind Legends of Runeterra as a whole. If you think we missed anything and you want to talk to us or ask us questions, we're still going to be active in the Discord.
Yeah,
So-
and real quick, we did. I'm pretty sure we addressed them, but just didn't say the names directly. We like addressed the podcast questions over the course of doing this, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
integrated.
we
those.
integrated them.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Just double checking. So we didn't.
Specifically call you out, but thanks for those questions.
Yes, we
That
did
added
integrate a
some fun
couple of
stuff.
them. Thank you very much. And I think without further ado, we will see you all in the Discord, on the ladder, whatever project we happen to find next. Thank you all so much for listening, and bye-bye. Shit, we're recording.
Yeah,
Let's go.
I just
Good
hit
work, Hugh.
record like a minute ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
So,
Okay. Everybody ready?
yep.
All right. One more time. In 3, 2,